Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast Strikes Back. My name is George, and you're listening to our best and worst. No, it's just our
top
best.
10.
It's our best of the year, 2019. A couple weeks late, but here we are with the boys Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hi there. A couple of months late if you look at most of the other
How do
publications
people
on
come
the
out
internet.
with top 10 lists? Well, 2 months before.
It always struck me as odd that because there have been so many films in the back half of December that I've seen that are in my list.
for like Oscar season and stuff. It's just to get those
I'm
clicks,
assuming
baby.
it's the people that have seen 1917 3 months early.
It's to get the clicks, man. And we don't do that here. We're authentic.
We don't get
real.
clicks.
We consider all 365 days of the year. 2019 is all done. We're in 2020, obviously. But as tradition holds true, we have to do our best and worst of the year. You're listening to part one, the best of the year, top 10. How this is going to work was just we're going to go one by one, list them off, 10, top to bottom, bottom to top. Let's get into it. Connor.
We're starting off. All right. Before I start,
Yep.
I'm going to mention this.
Okay.
There are some notable exceptions, like some outstanding titles that aren't in my list simply because I haven't seen them, although I'm sure that they would make an appearance there. I'm pretty positive. So I just want to say, if you don't, I'm not purposely...
and I would like to add, I've seen every single film from 2019. So if one of your favorites isn't on my list, it's because I didn't like it.
Have you seen 1917?
Yes.
Oh, son of a bitch. All right. I'm so behind. All right. My first one.
Number 10.
Number 10. It's John Wick.
Chapter
John Wick 3.
For a very specific reason. It's the same reason that it made it onto my list for top 5 for our half-year show. And that is simply because I have an incredibly fond memory of the action in that film. So I feel like I'm just kind of rehashing what I said in the half-yearly, but it still stands. This deserves to be here because of its contribution to action films as a whole. There were a lot of scenes in that were really inventive with the way that they presented the choreography, and that was absolutely brilliant. Things like the knife scene stand out pretty heavily.
Using a horse as a lethal weapon.
Using your horse as a lethal, using a book
Twice.
as
a
a lethal
That was
weapon.
so brutal.
Yeah.
So this I had to put on there simply because I thought that was a really cool aspect to this film. And a lot of the movies in my top 10 will be there for perhaps a specific reason. There might even be just a scene that I thought was particularly good and therefore meant that it had to be on this list. But that's my number 10.
Just kind of going off that point you brought up, Corridor Crew, which is this other YouTube channel, do this really cool series where they bring in stuntmen and they examine scenes. And they examined the final scene in John Wick 3 where they're in that glass, really cool sort of modern looking space.
Yeah, with the guys from the raid. And
and they were talking a lot about the grappling and ground martial arts that's in this film. And typically, martial arts or any kind of action film is on the feet. It's stand up.
very flashy.
Yeah, and there's some,
Cinematic,
and
yeah.
in some of these guys' contracts, like The Rock and stuff, it's in one of his, in that Fast and Furious movie, it was like he can't actually be on the ground. That's in his contract. He can't get to the ground. So what was really cool about this is they were talking about how there's this evolution coming through with stunt choreography where everyone is becoming a lot more appreciative through things like UFC, Bellator, ONE FC, mixed martial arts, becoming a lot more aware of grappling and ground martial arts, jiu-jitsu, all these types of things. And it's something that I didn't think about at all in the movie, but obviously when they brought it up, I was like, yeah, that's really cool because I'm really into UFC and that kind of stuff. And it's just cool to see these evolutions taking place. And I think John Wick, in terms of action films, is cutting edge stuff from the gun move, the handheld combat to the way he uses weaponry, to even like the inventiveness with that book scene. Like that was savage.
Just using whatever's around you. Like it's almost kind of like a Jackie Chan style approach, which is using the room, the chairs, the tables, all that kind of stuff, but in a little bit more of a, I guess, a lethal way, less of a dancing way. So yeah, I think, look, just because I walked out of that theater thinking like those particular scenes were so good and like just so not like things I had seen in other action movies in the last couple years, that I was like, yeah, that deserves to be there.
I think you're defending this movie too hard. You'll get no argument from either of us, I assume. That's one of my honourable mentions. I've gone on record on the review saying I think it's like the greatest action martial arts film to come out of Western cinema.
The only reason that I hesitate on why I defend it a bit is because the plot isn't quite as tight as I think it could have been, and there's a few scenes that drag on a little bit.
I think you could say the same for all three John Wicks, though.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
This is not an honourable mention for me, but an awesome film.
Yeah,
awesome film, very enjoyable. I just think I was very fatigued towards the end. Just went on and on and on and on. How many fucking crotches did those dogs bite?
A lot.
4?
That scene went on for a while, yeah.
Just go again on that. Go again. Okay, number 10 for me, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
wow.
I have a moral obligation to put a Star Wars film that
Just.
comes out in that year
Just.
to put it in the list.
Yeah.
And I think Rise of Skywalker does deserve number 10 spot. As a Star Wars fan for 20, 25 years or whatever, like I really did enjoy Rise of Skywalker from just in the moment in the cinema, it was just awesome and perfect, and obviously when you think about it after the fact, like JJ didn't have a watertight script here. There's a lot of stuff here that really kind of irritates me, like Rey with the dagger, and she pulls out that bit of the dagger and it like matches up to the wreckage of the Death Star, and it actually like makes my blood boil. But I had such a good time in so many other areas of this film. Palpatine was fantastic. From a story level, he was awful.
Mm-hmm.
But from a presentation and look and feel, it was fucking awesome. So Rise of Skywalker, while it's not a home run like I felt like The Last Jedi was when I saw it in 2017, it is a really, really solid Star Wars film, and I look forward to watching it again. It's probably like out of all these films on this list, it's probably by the time I'm fucking in the fucking ground, Rise of Skywalker is probably going to be the one that I see the most, because I'm that into Star Wars. So Rise of Skywalker.
That's another one of my honorable mentions. I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. I think it's dumb as shit. And the only reason I didn't react more negatively towards it, I think, is because I'd given up all hope that I was ever going to get a proper sequel to The Last Jedi, because I was a big fan of that film. So this Trevorrow script has kind of thrown a spanner in the works in that regard. But I think this movie is so like 10 out of 10 in so many levels. Just kind of not like
probably
story and
one
script.
of the most gorgeous films of this year.
Totally, yeah. So yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the hell out of it. Really, really dumb movie. But really fun. Really fun.
Dumb.
Just so convenient.
Dumb movie.
But I tell you what, one other thing about this film, C-3PO rocks in this film.
Best performance, yeah.
Yep.
And that for me is just, I get a kick out of that. So that's my number 10.
Cool.
What you got up, Benny?
I hate to do this to you guys. I have to start off with my number 11 place because I just couldn't get this down to 10.
No,
Sorry, boys. My number 11. My number 11 is a three-way tie that I'll just brush through very quickly.
This is horseshit.
It's Joker by
So you
Todd.
got top 14.
Joker by Todd Phillips.
Sorry, can we put a
Okay.
stop
Learn
to this?
to math. Joker by Todd. I'm just gonna brush through them. Calm down. Joker by Todd Phillips. For being one of the most immaculately produced films I've seen in the longest time. And just a hell of a wild ride from the beginning of the marketing, from the announcement of the film to now.
Totally.
Next up is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino, for having the single greatest scene I've seen all year, possibly all decade. Anyone who's seen the movie knows exactly what I'm talking about.
The ranch scene?
No. No. The finale.
Oh, yeah.
The most gleeful
Yeah, yeah.
orgy
It's
of
a good scene
violence
as well.
I've ever seen in
It's
my
a good
life.
scene as well.
And finally, Parasite by Bong Joon-ho, for all the reasons that I'm sure George is going to list later upon his list.
You are correct.
So my number 10 is Ari Aster's Midsummer,
Nice.
which is a movie we didn't even end up reviewing because I don't think you saw it, Connor, and I think the time had kind of passed. But I also didn't have much interest in reviewing it because watching this movie was such an intense personal experience for me. Leading up to it, it's coming along. It looks like this weird kind of Wicker Man cult horror movie. And then you watch it, and I don't know if everyone gets the same reaction, but like just straight away, I'm like, oh, this is a relationship film. This is a relationship horror movie about a breakup. And it was so affecting from start to finish to me. I didn't love it anywhere near as much as Hereditary, which was my number 1 last year. So Ari Aster's dropped a lot of places. But
Harry, what the hell, man?
mate, pick up a game. But holy crap, has it stuck with me? I haven't stopped thinking about it since. Really, I really want to see the director's cut he released. But just a gorgeous, like pastel, beautiful, horrific, deeply disturbing film.
This is higher up my list.
Nice.
I loved this film.
Yeah, awesome.
It is beautiful, horrific, and I didn't see it from that way. I didn't see it in the allegorical way. I was looking at a lot more surface level. But then thinking about it with that, reading a couple of reviews and people kind of giving me that sort of different viewpoint, it's like, oh yeah, of course, that's exactly what it is. But that's the beauty of the film, is it works at these two levels. And it's truly film in that it's so visual. Like this film is not necessarily, super insightful on like a character level, or I don't know. It's not like a really sort of like a deep, rich character study. It's kind of like about all these different people and the relationships between them and what's going on. And I think Ari Aster is he's the man. I look forward to seeing where he goes.
See, I think this movie's incredibly deep on a like human and emotional level. Just using this situation, this classic kind of horror movie trope of a situation where a bunch of really dumb tourists could walk away from this thing that is going to get them killed, very clearly going to get them killed, but they just choose not to. The way that intersects with the metaphor of this relationship in the film is so unbelievably perfect. I can't believe I've never seen anything like it before.
What's going on? as a bit of that's what you say. As a background, it is boiling in Sydney right now. Like
Yeah,
it is.
we're all dying horribly.
very hot. And
Yeah, speaking
This
of
portable aircon unit is not fucking working.
Speaking
have
of
gone in-
Midsummer,
in quotes, aircon unit here, which
Just try the other mode, all right?
it both blows and sucks.
but it sounds like we were because
Doesn't the snowflake mean cold?
but because
Like, what the fuck?
because George hasn't set it up near a window, there's the hot air that's just blowing out the other side.
Should we put it down the corridor?
Yes, obviously yes.
Go do that now. I'm obviously not capable of doing it.
While Connor is sorting our shit out, I'll make kind of an overall statement about my list, which is that I had a short list of about 25 films.
Fuck you.
And trying to put them in any kind of coherent order that actually mattered in terms of a ranking was
That was tough.
was almost pointless.
Yeah.
So with very few exceptions, this list could almost be completely reversed or switched around,
completely agree.
including the number 11 spot I just gave to 3 different movies.
Like top 5, all of them were just shifting for me throughout the week of me trying to nail the perfect list. But I completely replicate that sentiment. My list, they're very interchangeable. Except Rise of Skywalker is definitely number 10.
Definitely number 10.
Like number 10 is your spot. And that is all.
So that was kind of like an obligatory.
Did it work?
Come on, Connor.
Or you could open the door even more. Just the cat's gonna fucking. The cat's. Yeah. The cat's gonna jump out. Oh, that's actually working well. That's actually gonna. That's working well now. You can sit down. It's working well now.
You've done your job, sir.
No, it's doing good. It's doing good. It's actually doing really well. Sorry, everyone.
It's doing well for George.
We just
pointed directly at him.
Just trying to sort out this airflow.
Should have done a little more
situation.
prep.
But in terms of like Midsummer, I think out of every film on this list, visually, it is the most iconic. Like, as in, I can recall so many visual moments from that film. I think that's a testament to how good he is as a filmmaker.
Second film, I cannot wait to watch the rest of his career.
He's like a year older than us, man. Like, what
I don't
want to
know that. I don't want to hear that.
Doing?
That's horrible.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Come on, gotta step it up.
Number 9.
All right.
Oh God,
Now that we've
that
cooled
made
down.
me more sweaty. That was terrible.
No doubt.
Oh God. Sorry, just give me a second.
Drink up.
I'm dying. All right. Number 9 is Shazam.
Shazam.
Sam.
Honourable mention for me.
Yeah. Look,
Cool. That wasn't on your half year, was it?
it was number 5, I believe.
Ah, cool.
So look, Shazam is on there because a few reasons. One is that I think it's just so lighthearted and just when I think about it, I can't help but feel as though I don't know how to describe it. It's just a pleasant experience. Like, it's a warm feeling that I get because it's a superhero film that doesn't take itself too seriously. That I think feels in a lot of ways as though it is a course correction for DC, and I think that's a really wonderful thing. So yeah, I have a really soft spot for this film.
It was such a nice surprise to see DC, the dark and gritty side of the equation, coming out with the lighthearted, funny, also heartwarming superhero movie. Like, it's not like, super edgy like Deadpool or something, which is also very funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a completely, like, it's a real breath of fresh air. People compared it a lot to like the Raimi Spider-Man films, which we don't see anything in that vein too much coming out of like Marvel and stuff.
Yeah.
But it had a universe that felt big and expansive, whilst it worked at the multiple levels where it felt like it was a comic book universe with that epicness that you kind of expect, but also the character moments and the interactions at a more human level worked so well, especially with the little siblings and the final sequence, which is a pretty big spoiler if you haven't seen the film. Like, I was blown away by that reveal.
They definitely took it in a direction that I wasn't expecting towards the end there.
And that was Annabelle 2 director, right?
David F. Sandberg, yeah.
David F. Sandberg.
Legendary. I love
Chris-
that DC's just snapping up these horror directors and they're making wicked movies for them.
And I think also great performance from Zachary Levi.
Yeah, and all the kids were terrific, I thought, as well.
It was really just super well put together film on every level. Honourable mention for me. Thought it was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be making an appearance later on in the episode.
I figured it was because that landed on your number 1 spot for the mid-year, which is insane. But that's each to their own.
Let's go easy on the judgment on this episode, Connor. We're all celebrating good movies today.
True. Some of us better
Until
than others.
this part 2
Yeah.
where
we're
get really
we're getting
bad.
really drunk and doing very bad
really
movies.
bad. Number 9 is
for you.
Joker. Todd Phillips is Joker.
Right.
Oh, Jesus.
I was like, did I miss something this year?
I panicked. I was like, oh, he has gone really left field.
I think this film pushed the comic book genre to new territory and new places.
Logan.
We've seen
Logan.
dark. We've seen dark. Like Blade was dark. Maybe it was pulpy and more comic booky, but it there was a darkness to it there, and as you said, Logan definitely. But there was the references to Taxi Driver, the more sophistication in the presentation, not necessarily the script, but the presentation. This film felt like a film.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know, like you guys, or maybe Chris Nolan's Batman series, you could say that feels more like a film. But I think Joker, like, had that Scorsese DNA in it so much that just felt like, oh wow, the comic book universe can go to that territory now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the places we can go, the performance of Joaquin Phoenix, the ride, as you said, that it went on, like it was just a wild journey. And I think Joker, more than anything, just feels like 2019 in a nutshell. Like it feels like it represents the year so intrinsically, and I think it's a fantastic piece.
Yeah, look, I think this needs to be here just based on Joaquin Phoenix's performance alone. I think that however you feel about the movie as a whole or the controversy surrounding it, I think it is pretty much undeniable that Joaquin Phoenix did an absolutely pitch perfect, amazing job with that character in terms of what they set out to achieve. So, yeah, I no qualms with that being there at all.
Yeah, a lot of people have many different opinions on this film. It's the most nominated film at this year's Oscars.
11,
with
right?
11 nominations, yeah, which
Do you feel like that's too many?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about the Oscars. Probably, yes, because I think the movie is incredibly muddled in its messaging. I'm not sure if even it knows what it's trying to say, or maybe sometimes it knows too much what it's trying to say and really just throws it at you. But like you said, on a technical level, it's probably the best film of the year in several regards. So where some people have a very negative reaction to it, I think it's so far from the worst case scenario that it could have been. So I'm happy with your choice.
No sequel, please.
No sequel, please. No more Todd Phillips movies ever.
Goodbye.
No more Todd Phillips press junkets, actually. Number 9 for me?
Number 9.
Number 9.
My number 9
Number
is
9.
Number 9 is Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo.
Yes. Now, I was
Have you seen this, George?
I have not.
Neither have I.
I thought you were about to ask me.
No. And I was going to say, like, this is notably one of the ones that I did not see, and I'm almost positive that it would have made the top 10.
I think so, yeah.
See, I was very skeptical because Hunt for the Wilder People was so heavily praised and hyped up that by the time I finally got to see it, I was like, hey, yeah, that was pretty good.
Really?
Yeah.
I fucking loved it.
Whereas, the rest of the world was like, that was the fucking best thing ever made. I'm like, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, then the trailers come along for this one. I think it looks a bit twee. Like it looks
fanciful, let's do a funny.
Hitler's
weird,
an imaginary friend, and like I didn't love Ragnarok as much as everyone. My thoughts kind of go back and forth on it, but anyway, I sat down the other day and actually watched this, and was kind of blown away. Like I really loved it. It does this kind of fanciful like Wes Anderson shtick with a very clear Taika Waititi kind of spin thrown on it.
Yeah.
And the way it bounces between basically just comedy and tragedy is so deft. Like it's really wonderful and just filled with amazing performances top to bottom, and lands the ending so hard. I think towards the back end, because the movie is a really interesting. It has a really interesting theme, which is not kind of your standard, ooh, war is bad and Nazis are bad, which is what most of these are about, which is, of course, very true. But it actually has this really interesting kind of running thread about the radicalization of youth and the
Cult of personality and stuff.
Yeah, and this really interesting sort of reverse coming of age story about a kid who has to learn to be a kid rather than a fucking Nazi. And it's so much more relevant to today than I would have expected. Towards the back end, there is a little bit of like that, oh, war is bad sort of stuff. I'm not sure if that's the exact direction this was meant to go in. But once it finally finishes, it really sticks the landing. It is amazingly funny and sad and well made. Absolutely loved it.
Really, can you check this out? Do you think we would be into it?
No.
No?
No, you guys are very pro-Nazi, so I feel like you'd be very against this movie. Number 8.
I don't like how political this is, and
Listen, I'm a little more undercover than he is, all right?
Number 8 for me was Us.
Nice.
Us?
Us, yes. It was Us. It was
Our
us.
show?
Jordan Peele's Us, his follow-up to Get Out. I think Get Out was a little bit higher on my list when it came out, which was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Get Out is a better movie. But
Yeah, you slammed this movie in our review.
you
slammed elements of this movie.
I slammed elements of this
Yeah.
movie, and then it made my top 5.
But that's because he's
for
the
half a
devil's
year.
advocate.
I'm contrarian.
Connor the
Like, I
devil's
hate
advocate
people just
McGregor.
like jumping on bandwagons or jumping on any wagon. Like, wagons are stupid.
Wagons are stupid.
No, so I've again this is on my top 10 for the same reason that it was in my top 5 for the mid-year, which is that for what this movie does right, for certain scenes that I felt were so impactful. I think if you take what I found the messaging of this to be a little bit more muddled or a little bit more kind of less thought out than than Get Out. If you take that aside, as a movie, this is wonderfully crafted. Particularly that last dance scene, which I think is one of the most haunting and beautiful scenes of this entire year.
And the initial invasion scene, like Lupita Nyong'o is just fucking unbelievable. I can't believe she didn't get an Oscar nom for this one.
I mean, that's insane, right? But yeah, just basically this movie for me is made up of really awesome, well-crafted scenes. And I think that in and of itself lands itself in top 10. I was kind of, those still blow me away. Like, I think about that dance fight scene, and it just, so fucking good.
Anytime I Got Five On It comes on, I mean, that song's been changed forever now because you're just like,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of my honorable mentions again.
Same. This is an honourable mention for me.
It wasn't going to be anywhere near my list, actually, until I was really going through everything this year. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was, like, the highs in that movie were so unbelievably high.
Yeah.
Like, I like the highs of this movie better than probably anything in Get Out, which I really think is fantastic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one that I think I was so positive when we came out, and I still, it hasn't necessarily gone down for me, but there's so many iconic images in this film that are like burnt into my mind. But there was something that I don't necessarily know I'm going to go back to it like Get Out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
And I love the
Allegorical.
I'm just going to let you have said that.
When Connor's correcting you, you know you're in trouble.
We'll just splice it in to like...
It somehow erodes a little bit of the front end of the film. And I don't know, it's like more like a play. And it's kind of like, I've seen it. I don't really need to go back. Whereas Get Out, I'm like, I want to go and experience
I could dissect that movie
again and again and again and again.
For an age. I mean, like...
So it's kind of unfair.
Yeah, I think with Get Out, it felt as though we've all seen the scenes that made us laugh were all things that we've probably seen in real life. Where like, what was it? The guy was like, "Oh, I really loved Obama," like saying that to a black guy, and you're just like, "That's a weird thing to just up and say."
Yeah.
And that just, it was very poignant. It was very real. Like, we all kind of like, yes, it was completely unrealistic in that it involved, what was it, body snatching or whatever it was. But whereas this one was just, I think it was a little bit too, not necessarily on the nose, but like, which is why it's not higher on the list for me, because it just, it didn't quite get that natural feeling of Get Out.
Yep.
But all in all, I just really enjoyed the movie, but I really enjoyed those particular scenes.
Yeah, that middle chunk was amazing. Number 8 for me, Midsummer. Just talked about that. Just think it's an incredible film that is not necessarily horror. It's kind of hard to classify.
Yeah, it's not particularly scary, but it is somehow very intense. Yeah,
it's very horrific and confronting in a lot of ways. That bit with the woman on the cliff and then the whole ceremony, that's really intense and just so easy for me to recall.
Just the opening, like 10, 15 minutes with the sister is so unbelievably strong. Like, it's a fucking masterclass in how to start a film. I can't believe this guy, fucking Ari Aster, man. That really, like, if anything, this movie really haunts me. It's that fucking opening.
Love this film. Go watch it. Take what you will out of that film, because I think everyone's going to take something completely different out of it.
Yeah.
And let us know if the director's cut is worth watching, because I don't necessarily want to sit through this movie again just yet. But if the director's cut is really worth it, I will.
Do you know, is it just additional scenes or is it
it's
recut
just longer?
or rejigged?
It's longer.
Okay.
So I think there's just more in there.
Okay, cool.
But
Have you ever really seen the point of a director's cut that isn't like significantly longer?
Well, like Alien, it's like the same length almost, but it's just a few scenes have been rejigged.
I don't like the Alien one. I like the Aliens one.
Yeah, the Aliens one's interesting.
But then you got stuff like Dark City and Blade Runner, which are like super necessary and
yeah.
really cool. Anyway, my number 8 is Jennifer Kent's The Nightingale.
Oh.
Happy to have an Australian film in here. Represent. I feel like I contributed somehow to this.
Well done.
I stayed off this one for ages when it was in cinemas. I only caught it towards the end of its run because something about just, an Australian movie that's a period piece is just really, it doesn't grab me. And I hadn't seen The Babadook in ages, which I just rewatched again a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, did you really?
Holy fuck, that movie is amazing.
So I watched that for the first time this year. I remember talking about it, which is like, that movie blew me away.
Yeah.
Outstanding, yeah.
Incredible.
How long before you slept?
Well, I'm an adult, so it's fine.
hour.
But I actually fell asleep halfway through the film. That's how good I am.
It's so good. I've seen it all.
A bit too much of an adult then. I see.
I chucked it on. I pressed play. I fell asleep. Anyway, The Nightingale. So when I finally got around to seeing it, I could not have been more happy that I actually did. You were just talking about this on the Weekly Show, George, recently. I think this movie is not only kind of amazing and intense and just emotional, but also super important, which is a word you kind of kept using about it, which I think I said months ago when I brought it up on the show that I think everyone who lives in a part of the world that's been affected by colonization should watch this movie, which is every part of the world.
Well, it's a bit crazy, right? Like it's like watching Watchmen and finding out in the 1920s that there was just this massive massacre of, the in quotes Black Wall Street, and you're like, I didn't fucking know about that.
Yeah, not to say that this movie shouldn't be watched by everyone, but as an Australian in particular, watching our own history be played out in just horrific detail is so terrifying. Like, this country does not do, I think, an adequate job of really explaining what our history is.
I completely agree.
We have a lot of, native Australian studies and stuff, but it's largely whitewashed, or at least it was when I was in school.
I agree.
This movie is not. And you go in thinking it's kind of one thing, because this movie got a lot of press about being very disturbing for a very particular thing that happens early on, and that's not at all what this movie's about. That's a big part of it, and it does justice to that part. But there is so much more to it. And if you're out there and you're maybe a little trepidatious about this movie because you've heard about all the walkouts at the premiere and stuff, I would say ignore that and just watch it. There's one scene in particular in this movie that I think was the most emotional thing I saw all year. And I just can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, this is a lot higher on my list. It's an important film. Everyone needs to watch this. And as you said, as an Australian, it's very important to watch this. What's so interesting about it is it tells an emotional connection between an Aboriginal man and an Irish convict. And these two people are in the margins of society and in different ways, and they're treated in different ways, but they're both subjected to prejudice. And it's a really fascinating story about the human spirit. And it's also like people walked out of this and were like, couldn't hack it. And it's the rape scene is very, very intense in this, but this is such a small component of the film. And that scene is important for the film to show you how fucked up shit got.
I use this example all the time, but it's people going to see the 12 Years a Slave, period piece on slavery, and then walking out because it was horrific, and you're like, it's a period piece about slavery.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Yeah.
12 years of it, in fact.
In fact, yeah.
The way that like a simplistic film would have just, an Aboriginal man and an Irish convict becoming friends or whatever, or finding the similarities in their situation. But this movie does not whitewash it in that way. Like, the white woman is a piece of shit to the black man.
Yeah.
For a lot of it, and it's it's just not simplified
And you
at all.
don't even necessarily know if they see eye to eye. What was I going to mention? Yeah. So like the one thing I'll say about this film is, period piece Australian cinema. When I hear that, I go, Jesus Christ, can we get
this Baz Luhrmann's Australia?
Can we get Rise of Skywalker on, please?
Yeah.
But this film has...
It doesn't exactly, fill yourself with confidence, does it?
But it's got the character elements and the examination elements, but it also has the horror elements. And the horror elements that she lifts from the Babadook, it feels like her DNA on this film.
Yeah.
And the horror scenes just make this film have an X factor to it that adds to the story while still having that edge that Jennifer Kent brings to both of her features. So, man, awesome flick.
Yeah,
awesome flick.
She's a fucking maestro.
Finally can be proud of Australian cinema.
Finally,
Jesus.
as of this year, last year.
Today.
Not to sound like a prick, but this is probably the most challenging yet rewarding film on my list.
I think one of my top 10 of the decade is an Australian film, so I'm not entirely sure where we're getting that from. But
It's Baz Luhrmann's Australia, right?
Yes,
Yes.
That's it.
At least
I do remember watching
at
that
least in
and
2009.
being sad with just life, people, the earth. I don't know. All right, so my number 7, right?
7.
Speaking of simplistic films, The Wind.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
So The Wind is one of those ones where I don't know that I would have predicted that this was going to make my top 10. Certainly not before I had seen it. It had been very unlikely. But after having watched this, I was kind of blown away by it.
You've been waiting all week.
I don't get it.
So you got blown, all right?
Right.
Like as in the wind.
Yes, that always makes a movie better.
No.
No, I loved that this had minimal characters. I loved how this had, just a very to the point concept. The kind of insanity that comes along with being in an empty open space. I grew up on the prairie, I grew up in a city, but I spent a lot of time. I grew up. Why was I Irish in this?
Wait, you're not Irish?
No, I grew up in the Canadian prairies, and I get that. Like, I get the idea of being somewhere where you can look out and there is fucking nothing.
And then you
Except
ride a bull. You're like, yeehaw! I'm on the prairie.
Don't remember that part of The Wind.
Neither do I.
You don't remember that bit?
Or my
That was the
childhood.
post-credit scene. You
Right.
guys left.
Actually, that's exactly what my childhood was. No, it's ultimately I loved the simplicity of the concept, and how effective it was, and how freaky it was, and how it all just kind of like slowly melded together with the reveal, and I just came out of it very satisfied.
This is an honourable mention for me.
Me too. As a story, very simplistic. Like, you could note down the beats very easily, but the way it was told was so engrossing. Like, there was a non-linearity to it, which I always enjoy, trying to piece together a movie as I'm watching it. Just a really pleasant surprise, this one, and one of the best scares of the year, easily.
A good dose of realism and supernatural. The time element was interesting. The authenticity in the production design and presentation, it was brutal. I think this is a really, really great horror flick. And it's a cast of, half a
3?
dozen people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably like 6 or 4 people in this film.
Very much part of the elevated horror wave that has been sweeping the world for a decade now. So if you're more into your slasher flicks and stuff, maybe this won't do it for
not
you. But
pulpy at all.
No, but so well made.
Slow pacing, slow burn, everything about it is very kind of like, but it makes sense. Like, I mean, the setting lends itself to that. Nothing happens quickly in the prairies. It's just
Slow moving.
it's that slow crawl to insanity, and I think that's just so fascinating. I love that.
Number 7, Avengers Endgame. Is that something that happens in the movie? I clearly know this movie extremely well. What an accomplishment! Like, this is just an incredible piece. I didn't get as big a kick out of it as I did Infinity War. Like, when Infinity War came out, I saw it 5 times in the cinema.
6 for me.
Like, I was just like, this is the shit, and I continue to think that is one of the best the MCU has brought out. And Endgame was so satisfying. We had some really fun stuff with the time travel, and Ant-Man was a great component of it. I love Professor Hulk. It was awesome. It was awesome. And I think it just delivered on everything that it needed to. I only saw it 3 times in the cinema, and I'm not like, I'd actually like, even though I've seen Infinity War, God, I must have seen Infinity War 8 or 9 times by now.
Wow.
Like if someone said to me, hey, do you want to watch Infinity War or Endgame right now? I'd say I'd want to watch Infinity War. So, it's not like it's once again me comparing 2 films against each other, but I just think this is an awesome film. It's number 7 for me.
Anything to add, Connor?
No, mine's higher on the list. A big component of this for me is just the context of the film, which is why it's higher for me. When you take into the context of the challenge that they faced to just create this film, like the if you put it down on paper, it's insane.
Yeah, it's
We're going to
mental.
put like 50 major characters into a movie. We're going to encapsulate 10 plus films. We're going to just the feat that they had to undergo to have this
logistically
not be terrible.
Just logistically getting all those stars in one room.
Oh, fucking ridiculous.
Mental.
I love all those behind the scenes videos of them, the videos that they weren't meant to be taking, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Where do they
for
hide
me-
it? They have a back pocket and
But for me, it's about the context. It's just about the fact that this is a capstone upon a
Nice.
10-year journey. It's ironclad and no, sorry.
I get it.
That I think that's the only reason that it is high. Like, I agree with everything you said.
it's a hulking film.
Get out.
Sorry.
Infinity War, I think, is if you just look at it for what it is, Infinity War is probably a better film. But Endgame, just with the finality of it, I think is absolutely fantastic. So that's why it's higher on the list for me.
Is this higher for you, Benny?
Yes, absolutely. That was a very tense moment when it looked like it might not become the highest grossing film of all time. And what a stupid thing to root for. Like, I
know,
want
right?
my major company's movie to beat the movie that company now also owns, I think. But that was a well-deserved top spot for that one.
Just a final thing I want to say on this is just going off your point, just like the logistical aspect and how impressive that is. It's incredible. But at the end of the day, a film doesn't just get to me on like how many man hours you put in. Like a film with 3 people, like a cameraman and 2 actors, could potentially be the best film of the year for me.
But in a lot-
So for me, like Avengers Endgame at number 7, incredible technically, incredible story, what an amazing cap off to everything. But something about it just did not resonate with me, not necessarily as much as I wanted it to, but as much as Infinity War did.
Yeah.
So if I put it on a barometer against that, it's just that much lower that it sits in that spot there for me.
No, that like I said, that makes sense.
Number 7, Benny.
Number 7 for me is Sam Mendes' 1917,
Nice.
which I just saw in one of those fat-ass state-of-the-art cinemas the other day. And it was just mind-blowing. Like, it's the only way. I refused to watch it any other way. I saw the trailer for it in a VMAX cinema a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like,
Which one did you watch it in, just out of interest?
VMAX at event, Bondi Junction.
Okay.
Did you say it in a really snooty English accent? Say, I'll only watch this in the premium cinema.
How about I do the entire review talking like this, like one of the officers in the film?
Yeah.
No, it was it's a very gimmicky roller coaster of a movie. It's made to look like it's one shot, more or less. So anyone who's paying attention or anyone who really cares about film will be sitting there most of the time trying to see where the cuts are.
That's the worst thing with these films.
Can be distracting, absolutely. But something about it really transcended that. And I think more so than any other really long oneer I've seen, this movie justified it by being about two men on a mission, essentially in real time, with amazing stakes in a situation that we're forced to just watch all of. I'm not a big war movie fan, and even this, I love Sam Mendes, I wasn't too interested in until I heard about the gimmick that underpinned it. And my God, it paid off so hard for me. I think this alone as a technical achievement gets a spot on my list because holy crap. But just emotionally and narratively, it worked for me as well. A lot of people complain about, say, the lack of, character development or something in it. I disagree. I feel like you just spend enough time with these characters, just watching them, following them, listening to them, that through sheer osmosis, you get who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. I really think it gets a lot of that across. And Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, has delivered possibly his best work. And I think pretty much every movie he's ever made, I would put above any other cinematographer ever, essentially.
Movie, yeah.
He's got the magic touch.
Absolutely. So just quickly, his work in, say, Blade Runner 2049, his amazing, stunning shooting in that film. He manages to do that in this movie with a camera that is never allowed to leave the scene. He's following these guys the entire movie and still manages to frame everything perfectly and beautifully. It's not like some shaky cam found footage movie. It's actually mind-blowing.
That's fantastic.
I look forward to seeing this one.
My question to you is, as someone that doesn't typically, I don't know if I'd say enjoy, but certainly doesn't seek out war films, was that at all distracting for you? Like, as kind of, I don't know.
No, it was really interesting because I watched so few of them, and this, especially being a World War I film, it was kind of untrodden ground, and I had so much, not fun, but so much interest reading about the real life events surrounding this kind of battalion and everything that only really deepened the effect of the movie.
Awesome.
Really fantastic stuff. And probably one scene particular in the middle is probably just the greatest shot of the year easily, like just combining the shot and the score by Thomas Newman. Goddamn.
If you were to rank this against Dunkirk, which one would you say is the superior piece?
I haven't seen that since the cinema, but I like this a lot more because that was a film for me without a narrative. It was an amazing
experience,
technical accomplishment. Yeah. It really put you in the boots of these soldiers.
Yes.
But I didn't find anything to grapple onto as a human necessarily.
Okay. It could have been any war. It was interchangeable.
Or anybody, yeah. Whereas with this one, you're so focused in on such a small part of it, just these two guys, that it really grabbed me.
Interesting. I look forward to seeing that. Connor, number 6.
Number 6 for me is The Joker.
It's just Joker.
Whatever.
You both said it wrong now.
It's Joker.
Yeah, look, I kind of mentioned this with regards to your pick, George, or for when you made that pick.
When the pick was made.
When you said Joker, this is what I responded
and freaked us out.
It's like, what movie? Scanning archives, Joker.
Can't remember what I was going to say. Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this, I thought, was nothing short of spectacular. In and of itself, deserves a top 10 spot. The other thing that I want to mention that I didn't mention before was the soundtrack to it, which I thought was absolutely stunning. It's Hildur, I can't remember her last name.
She did Chernobyl, right?
She did Chernobyl. I actually misquoted this the other day because I said that this is her first.
Jake Travakis
pulled me up on
out.
it. Rather,
that's right, Jake. That's how we roll.
Thank you for that.
On you, Jake.
That's how we do it.
Get
Connor's
it.
fucking wrong.
Send the dogs on him.
You were correct. She'd done Chernobyl, and I think at least one other thing. She's worked on a number of other films both in being a cellist as well as I think consulting or helping out with the
Like
score,
a sub-composer
Sicario
or something, or
yeah.
co-writer.
But a lot of the projects she's been attached to have been very impressive.
Yeah. She's been in the industry a long time.
Yeah, but this as her own piece, like to get recognition as
She's
her
a force.
thing. Yeah,
She's a force
Fuck,
to be
man.
reckoned with.
I think that honestly, I'm really excited to see who she pairs up with, and who she, and what she brings to the table. Like whether we will see a very kind of definitive style from her. I think
she's a
cello-
cellist, right?
She's a cellist, and cello in general.
It was very cello heavy. It had, and cello is one of my favorite instruments. It's got that perfect
when
tone.
used properly is so effective, particularly for a movie.
It's one of the few instruments you can just give a big old hug.
Big
Get in there.
But also just in terms of
naked with it.
a long, serious, drawn out note on a cello from one of the kind of the lower end of the cello is so impactful.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I find the lower range of pitches in films to be so atmospheric, to be really, particularly in horror films or kind of slower paced films, really, really effective. So I think she brings a lot to the table.
There's a whole thing about it. There's this avant-garde noisecore artist called Lustmord, and he's done a few horror films, and he works in sub 50 hertz, and there's certain frequencies that actually resonate in your body and cause fear. There's certain studies that have shown this. So I completely agree with you. Those low frequencies can just be so affecting and arresting when used correctly.
So I think that is a major component of why this is made top 10, is really down to her score. And I can't stress that enough. So yeah, look, it's Joaquin Phoenix's performance, it's her score. Obviously Todd Phillips did a really good job of directing this. The only reason I think that it's not higher is that I found this movie rather unpleasant to watch, which is probably why it's not higher. I mean, it probably makes it quite effective. I think that's what he was really going for.
Yeah, I'd never need to see Joaquin Phoenix dance in his tidy whities again.
Yeah, not even just that, but just
I could go another round too.
As a protagonist, I found him very unlikable. And there's a lot of people that were, saying, "Oh no, I felt very sympathetic for him," and I was kind of, that was very confusing for me, right? I didn't feel that sympathy towards him. I think a lot of people did. It felt very abrasive to me, which is probably the only reason it's not higher.
Awesome film, man.
Yeah.
My number 9, Joker. Number 6, yeah? Number 6.
Sure, why not?
Dr. Sleep. Mike Flanagan's Dr. Sleep.
How
I was nervous about this.
dare
man.
you place our patron saint lower than at least 5?
I was really...
Your
off
top
the
5
podcast.
better be fucking good.
Yeah, you're getting kicked off the
Don't you
podcast
worry.
immediately.
It's immaculate. I've been working on this shit. Dr. Sleep, the amount of fear I had going into this film, not a great marketing campaign. The trailers, I don't think, were ever really great.
Yeah.
In fact, I came out of the trailers feeling worse off for this film. You hated the trailers.
The Shining is, I would say, top 5 films for me, top 10.
Yeah.
That film is so rewatchable, so layered. I've
Top
seen
10.
it so many times. I absolutely love The Shining. So to hear, Dr. Sleep, the novel, which wasn't well received, is getting made. And Mike Flanagan, who is so beloved by this podcast, is coming in. He's kind of doing a hybrid. He's kind of doing half of this, half that. I was so worried, man. I was like, fuck, dude, it's going to be one of these ones.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of these ones that just fucks the whole legacy up. And it wasn't. And it was so much more. It added to the world. It expanded upon it. It's a totally different thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this is such an awesome delivery on something that I was super worried about and had, fuck it. I would have cried. I would have cried. A grown man. You would have made a grown man cry if they'd fucked this one up.
Mike Flanagan, God bless him, made a movie that made me like a Stanley Kubrick movie more. that is a fucking miracle that he made a belated sequel, which is already the most tenuous ground you can stand on. Like, most of those suck so much harder than any normal movie. But he made one that takes a crazy, like, esoteric, bizarre nightmare of a film and actually explains a lot of it and recreates a lot of it, recasts most of it, and somehow it was brilliant. Like, it was so watchable, and it was so long and so epic, and I was just not... I loved every second of it.
This movie has every tick-the-box bad sequel, thing about it. Like, it's a sequel to a movie that came out, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
39.
Yeah.
It's a movie that is recasting. It's trying to continue a story that is kind of bizarre and as you said, very esoteric. Like,
they recast Jack Nicholson's first or second most famous character.
Yeah, I mean, there's
It's a recipe for disaster.
This movie should not have been good, and Mike Flanagan fucking pulled it off. And I think a lot of it has to do with as well Ewan McGregor, who I thought was really spectacular in this role. And there's just some very, very subtle scenes in this movie that I thought really made it likable for me.
I want to watch it again and again and again and again. I hear there's a director's cut, a 3-hour director cut that's coming out.
I'd be on board for that easily.
Yeah.
I'd be so down.
Bring it to me.
All
there's
right,
so few situations where I'd be like, yeah, give me the 3-hour version. But with Flanagan, I'm just like,
He's just very tasteful in his approach, and it works
his exploration
so well.
of characters is got to be at least one of the best in the business.
when Rebecca Ferguson was in whichever Mission Impossible film she was in,
Rogue
and
Nation.
the world went mad, they were like, this is the best thing ever, this woman. I watched it, I'm like, I didn't even, there was an actress in that. Sure.
Yeah.
In this movie, I'm like, holy fuck, she was amazing.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
so fucking good.
Yeah, those whole vampire, shining vampire creatures.
I
posse.
thought that was going to be bad.
And
I thought
apparently
that
they're
was-
one of the worst parts of the book. Apparently they're bumbling idiots.
Okay.
Yeah, and that whole group is so cool in this movie.
That makes, Flanagan knew how to dress it up. That's what I mean. He's got such good taste. I feel like he just kind of knows where it needs to land.
His strength is in characters, man.
Yeah. So, number 6, Dr. Sleep. What you got, Benny?
Let me try and remember.
As you said, they can all be interchangeable. So you could read number 1 right now, and
It, honestly, yes.
it's the same shit.
It absolutely is. My number 6 is Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story, which I'm sure we'll be talking about again later.
Yep.
I feel like the simplest thing I can say about this is that this is just a plain relationship drama. That's exactly what it is, and I wanted to watch it again after I saw it. No
I don't know that
drama.
I ever want to watch this again.
No fucking drama movie has ever done that to me. Like, I will watch a superhero movie 6 times in cinemas, but when I watch one of my favorite movies of the year, if it's just a drama, I'll be like, why do I need to go back for that? But this one, I don't know what exactly about the construction of it just made me want to see it again.
So there was a movie that came out a while back called Revolutionary Road.
Oof.
Is
That's
it the
an
Sam
intense
Mendes
one.
one
Yeah.
with Tom Hanks?
Kate Winslet, yeah.
Kate Winslet
Yeah.
and not Tom Hanks.
DiCaprio.
Which
Oh, that one.
I
You're thinking
hated.
of Road to
I
Perdition.
really hated that.
Thank you.
Because it delved into this relationship that just seemed like hateful, and every second scene was them yelling at each other. I'm just like, there's no kind of I don't feel sympathy for these characters. I don't
Doesn't
like
feel
these
real.
characters. And I kind of was a bit worried going into this one that would be the case with this one. Like, it was going to be a movie that made me dislike them. It was just going to be a movie about a couple fighting.
But what Marriage Story so beautifully did was illustrate why these people loved each other so much in the first place.
Oh,
And
That's exactly what I was just about to say.
every 10 minutes...
that's what he didn't let me say.
I know, sorry. It's my pick. It's my pick. Every
I liked it more. Yeah.
every
You were just like sitting there being like, don't you fucking let me.
I remember what I'm saying. Every 10 minutes, like, you literally shifted perspective to the other side of the couple,
Yeah.
and that became the protagonist, and the other person became the antagonist. And you,
But even at the beginning, they're in therapy and they're just listing off how they fell in love and what they or why they loved each other. And you know, like when you go through that first like high school breakup or whatever, and you're in that like the rose tinted glasses. Like
I never had a girlfriend in high school. Well, thanks for rubbing it in, mate.
But as you said, Connor, like that other one, that one. You know, it's just like they hate each other. They were going to get a divorce. They fucking loathed each other. When this film was nuanced, it was like they actually really did love each other at one stage in their life, and things changed. And I thought it was just so authentic and real and human. And to start off on that note and those pieces of dialogue, with the voiceover and the different scenes of them kind of talking about each other, I was so in this film.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't even just necessarily that they started there. They like, there were scenes halfway through the film after terrible things had been said that you could just tell that they still loved each other. So it wasn't like watching this kind of steady line from they love each other at the beginning, they hate each other at the end. There's your linear path. It was very much an exploration about how people actually fight. Like if you had a fight with a loved one, and it doesn't have to be your wife or a spouse or anything like that. If you've had fights with brothers or your mother, your father, anything like that,
Or co-hosts on a podcast.
co-host with a podcast, you will it's so recognizable what they're doing in that film. You say things that are like they cut to the bone.
Yeah, you pick on sore spots.
And then immediately after you're like, I'm such a piece of shit. And you feel terrible and like the way that it runs through those dynamics I thought was so excellent and so subtle and so like just very real. And I try to say that without sounding like too much of a wanker, but the shoe fits.
It's authentic. It's so unbelievably authentic. You watch this movie, 10 minutes in, you're like, Noah Baumbach has gone through at least one divorce. Like, watching this film, clearly this man has gone through...
He has?
I haven't actually looked it up because I watched the movie. I'm like, clearly he has.
Greta Gerwig, right?
Sure.
I think he is.
I'll take your word for it.
Someone mentioned that
Stay
it was
out of the
like
tabloids.
semi-autobiographical, sort of. So I'm not sure whether that's because...
All of his movies kind of are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But beyond the writing of the film and the directing even, the performances, Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson are nominated for 3 Oscars all up at this year's awards. It's not enough. Good. It's not enough.
Massive props to our boy Kylo and Black Widow. Like, seriously, these guys are on full display here.
I mean, the scene.
The scene, yeah.
My God.
It's so spectacular. And
yeah,
I mean,
I'm getting chills.
I was listening to, I mentioned this last week on the weekly show. I watched I think it's either the THR or the Variety, or whatever it is that they do the round table.
Yeah. Hollywood Reporter or something?
Yeah, or Vanity Fair. I don't know. Fuck.
GQ, who can say?
GQ. I think it's GQ, actually.
Somebody.
They do the... they were kind of asking Adam Driver about, like, how do you, I guess, force yourself into that place, or, like, do you think about that stuff? And he goes... If the writing's good, if you've got like a good partner across from you, then you just have to you can't force it. You just kind of like enter that space. So I think that, this is a testament to Adam Driver. It's a testament to Scarlett Johansson, but most importantly, it's a testament to them both being able to play off each other, being able to it's a testament to the script writing. Because, when you read something that is really impactful, it's not hard to feel that emotion.
Perfect concoction.
Scarlett has so often skirted the line between like mainstream actor, shitty blockbusters, the MCU, and like the odd occasional indie drama thing. I really hope last year solidifies her as like one of the greats.
Yeah,
because she's fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, I do not think that Scarlett Johansson gets enough credit.
Because you remember, I mean, this has really dissipated a lot in recent years. But do you remember how much shit she used to cop for being like just unemotional and like robotic?
Yeah,
especially for her Black Widow performance and everything.
No. And I mean,
she's fantastic, man.
Anyways.
Anyway.
That one was a little bit higher on my list.
So that was your Marriage Story. That was
number 6 for me.
And can I just say, like, I don't think us as movie fans, we're not like drama. Like we love indie, we love blockbusters, we love everything. But like, I wouldn't necessarily think, if you gave me the bullet points of this, I wouldn't necessarily say Marriage Story would be, in our. I don't know about you, Connor.
Certainly earlier in the year, but like no.
And also Netflix as well. Awesome job here.
Yeah, massive,
really
massive
awesome
props.
job. Number
Is it not to me?
5.
Number 5 to me.
Number 5.
Number 5 to me is The Art of Self-Defense.
Oh,
Fucking awesome film.
nice. I didn't see
I-
this one.
Really loved this film.
I felt real bad. This is the one I felt really bad about not having in my top 10.
Wait, are we actually pausing, or am I going to keep going? Or why are you leaving?
He hasn't seen this movie. He has to leave. He didn't want to hear. He didn't want to hear the spoilers.
Also make? I'm getting blowback. Like I'm so fucking hot.
Get over yourself, Connor.
I'm dying. Like where were we? Talking about Art of Self-Defense. Yeah, you and me saw this together actually. This movie is. I never thought I'd be able to use this outside of my like year 12 English curriculum, but it's what is it? Reductio ad absurdum, which is the. I love that this applies.
It's so perfect though.
Which is we're taking a concept or an ideology and bringing it to its absolute absurd conclusion, or this playing it out in a way that is extreme,
And throwing a spotlight on how all of it is that ridiculous.
And I think that's exactly what this movie is. It takes that that struggle that I think a lot of particularly young men.
It's a film about masculinity. Very much so,
and kind of shows a bit of the downside. And I generally speaking do not like the commentary that comes about with that, because I think it's very
simplistic.
Very simplistic and like, traditional males are bad. Whereas this one, like, because it's like almost like a parody, because it's so ridiculous, I feel like it gets away with it, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I really enjoyed this. But yeah, no, this definitely deserved a top spot.
Yeah, I really struggled with not actually putting this on my list. In particular, the performance by Alessandro Nivola as the martial arts instructor fucking blew me away.
He's so good.
Because I have not seen him since he had a supporting role in Jurassic Park 3.
He is not prolific, and then just comes out of nowhere and just blows. Yeah, it's so impressive.
Like I spent the whole movie being like, why do I know this guy? And then it's because I've watched Jurassic Park 3 so many times as a kid. I'm like, oh, he's Billy from Jurassic Park 3. But he's amazing in this film. I feel like it's a shame that not more people saw this.
Yeah. No, I would have liked this to have been a lot more kind of in the mainstream.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I was mentioning, without trying to sound too wanky, complex films before. I think this is one of them. You really have to kind of figure out with yourself what it's trying to say exactly. But it's well worth the discussion, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Movie.
Yeah, no, look, I ultimately this movie I just enjoyed it. I thought it was such a surprise. I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did.
In a similar way to that, I was just talking about Scarlett Johansson being very criticized and pigeonholed. Jesse Eisenberg, people fucking hate that guy. Like, they call him, just like lame Michael Cera, like worse Michael Cera, or and now where the fuck is Michael Cera now? But Jesse Eisenberg, man, I think he picks great projects, and I think he does a great job in them. And I think like he was tailor-made for this role. Yeah. He maybe doesn't have the most amazing amount of range, but fuck, he was good.
I reckon that he would be really harsh. I would like, I have no desire to hang out with him. Just
Jesse.
Yeah,
I mean, I would. He's rich.
Yeah, it's like, not to say that he would want to hang out with me.
He's frugal. He's rich, but he's frugal.
He's sitting at home right now with his headphones and crying softly. I really liked Connor. He was my favorite on the show.
But no, I just like the projects that he chooses and the way that he goes about these characters. I just think is really interesting.
I also want to go on record again as saying I liked his Lex Luthor. Fucking fight me. George, your number...
Was that an honourable mention for you?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
I think all of Connor's have been, except the ones that are on my list.
Number 5, Marriage Story. We just talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome film. Kudos to Netflix. Kudos to the performances. Awesome film. And you said... what did you say on the weekly show? You said that married people don't like this film.
No,
No,
I
no,
said
surprised that you had watched it.
some married people kind of try and avoid this film because it's so authentic, as we said. It's so real, and it's so, I imagine, for someone in a dedicated relationship, kind of like a horror movie. Like, this could be my future,
I'm
theoretically.
100%. Like, I get
Not talking
that.
about you guys.
Like, it is genuinely stressful watching this because if you, and again, I don't even necessarily think it's about being married. Like, we've all had fights like that. If you've fought with someone that you love,
But were you married when you had that fight?
well,
Yes.
no.
It's not a real fight then.
It's called
Me and my
Marriage
fiance don't
Story.
actually fight. Me and my fiance are
There's
good for each other.
criteria.
Yeah. Wait, do you and your wife fight?
No.
Oh my god.
Never. It's never happened.
I
It's
can count them on one hand.
certainly never happened in public.
Just because.
Just
behind closed
throwing
doors.
shade at your relationship.
On the pod that she'll never listen to.
This is an authentic podcast, authentic movie.
Wait, does your wife
Number
listen to the
5.
podcast?
No, just quickly, the other aspect of this film we didn't really touch on. The other aspect of this film we didn't really touch on is the legal minutia in it, which I think is so gripping in its own way.
And and probably the saddest part of it.
Absolutely,
because,
Alan Alda's character in particular, yeah.
What's Jurassic Park? Laura Dern.
She's
She
amazing.
is so good in this film, and also
Did you come out hating her though?
No.
Goodfellas.
Really?
Goodfellas.
I
Ray,
fucking hated her.
Ray Liotta was a lot
Ray
worse.
Liotta. Ray Liotta was
I hated them
awesome
both. No.
in it.
I hated them both.
I hated them
equally.
both.
Yeah, they were all playing the same horrible
'Cause
game. I
they're-
hated the system.
Yeah.
I hated the game,
Like,
not the
but,
players.
like both of these people like were profiting off that system and doing absolutely nothing to like try and break down those walls. They were just like
Laura Dern seemed genuinely sympathetic, at least. Ray Liotta seemed like a fucking...
See, no,
Really?
no. See, I got the
did not look
exalted.
at it that way. I
No?
looked at them as both as like on the same plane.
So-
Yeah.
In fact,
Not unfair.
I'd probably
You know,
go
but
one
different-
step further, which is I appreciated Ray Liotta's honesty
Yeah.
about what they were doing. I found,
Laura Dern deceptive.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it kind of comes about at that last little bit where she says something to Scarlett Johansson, and you're like, oh, okay, like it's not about what you think it's about, and that to me made it feel yuckier. Like at least Ray Liotta was like, he was openly disgusting. Which is not that much better, but it's like, it's something.
It's like 0.5% better.
Yeah.
What do we got? Number 5, Benjamin.
Number 5 is The Farewell by Lulu Wang.
Nice.
wow.
Now, this is a little old A24, I believe, film starring Aquafina, who is known for her rapping and
Comedy.
various very average comedy films.
So this is the one about the Chinese family that has a terminally ill...
So the tagline of the film is based on a true lie. So yes, it's about an American-raised Chinese American woman who has to go back to China because her grandmother, her Nai is dying, and the entire family puts together this fake marriage from one of the younger members of the family to get them all together to say goodbye to her because they don't want to tell her she's dying. They don't want to admit it to her, and it's just one of the most sweet, beautiful films I saw all year. Probably the most beautiful film I saw all year. But also just a really interesting examination of the kind of culture clash between a culture that would see that kind of thing as perfectly fine,
Yeah.
and a more Western culture where it almost sounds kind of monstrous, not telling someone they're dying. And it really manages to walk the line beautifully. Like, you come out of that movie seeing everyone's point of view and understanding everyone's point of view completely. I definitely did not come anywhere near to crying as much in any other film this year. It is so beautiful.
Yeah, my brother. So my brother's dating a Chinese Australian girl, and they went back to China together to meet her grandparents, and they had such a great time. But he told me, in terms of his experience versus the film, he said this is so real. This is so similar to our experience. Obviously, it's a bit of more of a story in this.
Circumstances are slightly different.
Exactly, but
Wait,
he said
her grandmother was dying and they faked a wedding?
He's
and
dying.
But that was a really cool endorsement to hear from him.
Mate, I'm telling you, like it's until you are in that kind of relationship until you've actually experienced that for yourself. There's no way to really convey how like bizarre it is to truly come up against another culture and be like, oh, this is different than what I am
I
used
got
to.
to figure this
There's
out.
a lot
is
more
like-
world out there.
Oh my God. It is like people kind of flippantly talk about it. It's like it's serious. It's people's like lives that are completely different. Which is a
Sounds like
wreck.
I've got to check this out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very,
no, I
very
think
highly
that'd be
recommend.
really-
Top 5,
I
baby.
almost put it on the plane, but
I'm definitely
didn't.
watching this alone. I'm not including my fiance in this one. All right, that's on to me then, isn't it?
Number 4.
Number 4 for me is Knives Out.
Knives Out.
Knives Out.
Lovely.
Benoit Blanc.
Yeah,
Is that his name? Benoit?
I really
Wow, I got
enjoyed
his
this
name
film.
right.
Ben.
Got to soak in this moment.
It seems like such a cop out to kind of describe this movie as a subversion because it's the tagline and it's Ryan Johnson and
Ryan Johnson subverting expectations.
yeah, it's such a. But I really love that this movie is about it. Like, there's nothing about this movie that's particularly straying from the whodunit, but I love how you kind of know who did it pretty much from the get-go, and it's really about how things unfold beyond that. And that brings a new flavor to the film, for me at least. And so, and beyond that, the writing is spectacular. The acting is spectacular. In terms of an ensemble cast, it's one of the best performances of this year.
Yeah, costume design is not something that normally stands out to me, but I just thinking about this film, all I can see is the distinct looks of everyone in it, of that amazing ensemble.
And mirroring that period piece that Hercule Poirot sort of,
Existed.
but bringing it into the modern aesthetic.
Yeah, it's a really good throwback to that amazing new director who broke out on the scene with something like Brick that was just, throwing two things together. I enjoyed this film a lot. It didn't actually make my honorable mentions because I think expectations were probably a bit too high, just being Ryan Johnson, someone I love so much, and just everything surrounding it looking so amazing.
One of the reasons that it definitely made my top 5 was just the amount of enjoyment that I got out of this film. And I think that I can sometimes not value enough the idea of just enjoying a film. Like I think,
Totally.
Particularly being like I'd say in air quotes, a critic. I don't think we're critics, but like, like
Don't kid yourself, bud.
it's sometimes we think about movies in a different way than like you would. Like I'm going to relax tonight. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to enjoy it. And I try and get in that headspace as much as I can, but kind of inevitably thinking about like, oh, what am I going to say about this film? So I sometimes feel as though I undervalue the enjoyment of a film. And I came out of this film really enjoying this film. Like I had a good time.
Yeah, you're very right. I don't give this film enough props. I would give anything for so many more films to be like this level of just really good
Enjoyment.
and enjoyable and engaging and
good business. It made good business on a $30 million or $40 million budget. It's racked up like 100, 200 million. It's done really well. This is an honorable mention for me.
I think like I said, there's a lot of movies that have made my top 10 for a number of reasons, because of the technical achievement, because of the acting, because of the story, the critic, how it made me, like the thought, all of that kind of stuff. This one is definitely there because I went to the theater, I enjoyed myself. I understand that was one of the marketing taglines, but it is 100% accurate in this case. This was a fun time.
I've never actually looked up what the anti-Last Jedi Brigade's response to this film was. I'd love to know it because I feel it would be so hard for anyone to not like this movie.
I'm assuming they just never saw it.
This film solidified to me Ryan Johnson's his pursuit of subversion, like Brick, Looper, The Last Jedi,
The Brothers Bloom, which
This
I don't remember
one.
anything about.
See, I haven't seen that one, so I can't comment.
I feel like
on
I
it.
haven't seen it.
But his whole thing is like taking a preconceived idea, flipping on its head, he does it so well. I look forward to seeing what he brings out next.
More like Ruin Johnson.
Number 4, Netflix's The Irishman.
Very nice.
Oh, okay. This didn't make my top 10.
Nice. I think I'm probably
dismissive, like, oh, nice. You're a
nice.
piece of shit. Anyways,
I think would I be correct in saying I'm probably the biggest Scorsese fan out of us 3?
No. Hugo's my favorite film of all time.
So I am correct.
such a piece of shit.
And this so clearly adheres to the Scorsese template.
Mm-hmm.
But it pushes the envelope in a few different ways. De-aging technology, the fact it's on a streaming service, and the epic nature of it, 3.5 hours. I don't think any of his other films have reached that kind of length. It's kind of like the culmination of a career, getting the band back together, De Niro, Pesci, Scorsese, bringing in Pacino for the first time as well. It's kind of like this amazing list of ingredients, and thankfully for me, you know, the taste of the cake met the recipe box.
So,
Is it called a recipe box?
Put that on
No.
put that on the back of the DVD.
I'm a bit surprised actually, because all the reasons that you mentioned there seem to be external, kind of contextual reasons for this film.
Totally.
And that's I'm not. A lot of the reasons that I gave for why Endgame was higher in mine were all contextual, and it seems as though for that movie you were looking at it a lot more as the movie is. What makes the contextual aspect of this movie that much more prevalent to the point where it is that much higher than, let's say, Endgame, which I feel like you've shied away from, like, the contextual, like you just.
I feel as though, because, you know, if you compare this to Goodfellas, is it doing anything totally novel from a story element? You know, it's going in a different direction where it's less playful. I think Goodfellas is a little more playful. I think this is a lot more serious in its nature. And I think those last few scenes with, you know, the last scene with Joe Pesci, spoilers, he just walks off. You know, he just walks off and then you never saw him again. And for me, that scene resonates with me so much, because that's what happened when the last time I saw my grandma. She just went off, and like that was the last time I ever saw her, and it was just like, it wasn't sad, it wasn't happy, it wasn't like this amazing, here's a Hollywood moment, this is the last time you're ever going to see a relative.
There's
The sun was
no
glowing
violent, glorious death like Pesci's had before.
It was just a little fleeting moment, and it sat with me, and it'll sit with me for the rest of my life, but it just kind of
He was
wafted
just a
off like
sad
a cloud.
little old man.
And that, you know, I did talk a lot about the contextual, but the human element of this film, and the fact that the 3.5 hours, it's meant to kind of feel like a lifetime in a way.
And
But
it
this
does.
is, for me, this is the fastest 3.5 hours. I mean, I'm notorious on this podcast. I fall asleep in movies. If it's an hour and 2 minutes, I'm like, fuck this.
Get
I've
over
got
it.
shit to do. But this one flew by for me, and it's a defining film for 2019, and I loved it. I really did love it.
I'm really happy to hear that. This is one of my honourable mentions. I've talked about it at length on the podcast, including our review, of course. I thought it was just really, really solid for like 3 hours, and then it delivers this recontextualizing gut punch of an ending that reflected on Scorsese's whole career and changed my whole perception of the film completely, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. This was a very close contender for my top 10, but 3.5 hours is a lot to work with.
Wow. So,
It's too long.
so honorable mention, and Connor, is this an honorable mention for you? Or?
Oh yeah, I'll give it an honorable.
But it's not like a definitive honorable
sure.
mention.
No.
Interesting.
This, I mean,
so
honestly,
I enjoy this a lot more than you guys.
Yeah, yeah. For me, this movie was perfectly encapsulated by the fact that I really enjoyed it, but I will never revisit it. It's
Interesting.
not worth 3.5 hours.
And do you
I disagree. I feel like 3.5 hours is the point.
I mean, it may very well be, but maybe that's a point that I don't want. Then is my
Fair
point.
enough.
Is my
Yeah,
point.
that's true. I probably won't rewatch it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's like I'd no. The way that I described it before was I'd love to rewatch this film, but I don't want to spend 3.5 hours doing it.
Just watch the YouTube cut.
Pretty much, yeah.
Number 4,
Is it me? Number 4?
Rise of Skywalker.
Psych.
Yeah. So my number 4 is a film I rewatched last night. It's Babak Anwari's Wounds, starring Armie Hammer and Zazie Beetz.
Wow, number 4.
So I watched this again last night. I wanted to put it at number.
Cool.
I wanted to put it at number 1. But
Cool,
I
dude.
felt like the response would be too scathing. I don't know. The response to this movie was fairly mixed. So this was a Netflix film based on a horror novella. If you haven't heard of it, you probably have heard of it. A lot of people seem to know it as the Haunted iPhone movie, which I think is such a ridiculous underselling of what this film actually is. Yeah, I've heard people kind of talk about it, like because it's on Netflix, so it gets a lot more exposure than something like this normally would. And I think they just read the synopsis and be like, okay, message,
That's
weird messages off a phone. I'd heard a little bit of buzz about this movie, nothing too crazy. It was on my list of things to look out for, and it came to Netflix, so I'm like, okay, I'll chuck it on. And it was an amazingly intense, very personal experience watching it. And then I watched it again last night, and it was even better. It was something that I don't know how to properly describe how much I love this.
What makes it personal for you?
TMI, it'd probably be too much to say, but just every element of the main character is very familiar.
Okay.
Like, it's very... I can see why you didn't like it as much as me. It's...
I love this. I love that this is a perfect example of how movies are so not objective, and that the way that you approach a film, whether that's what you bring to it from a personal point of view, or whether that's because you've had too much to drink the night before, or because you had someone next to you that was crinkling a chip packet. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, the context in which you see it, or the what you bring to that film is as important as what that film essentially shows you.
Totally.
Yeah, so this was a movie absolutely tailor-made for me. I loved his last film, Under the Shadow, and like Iranian horror movie. It was fucking wicked. And this one, it's just everything I could be looking for in a film. It's completely, like, it's almost abstract, like it's esoteric. It's telling a story, a horror story from a male point of view, which obviously the white male point of view is ridiculously overrepresented in fiction, but not so much in horror. You generally find, I think, probably the most female protagonists, apart from maybe the romance genre, are in horror.
Yeah.
So to see my favorite genre have a character who I could relate to very closely, telling a story that I was intensely interested in, which is almost Lovecraftian in its nature, just enraptured me to a degree that I find so rarely. Like I said, watching it again last night, the movie deals with, like, there's a lot of scenes of cockroaches, and I'm deathly afraid of cockroaches. And at one point during the movie, yesterday was the hottest day in like a year and a half, and a really creepy, fucking long, weird-looking spider started crawling up the wall while I was watching the film. And I'm ashamed to say, normally I would escort any bug out of my house off the balcony. But at this, I was like, you chose the wrong fucking night, buddy. And I drowned that brother in spray. Anyway, I don't know if that really illustrates...
Buggy.
I don't know if that illustrates why I liked the movie necessarily, but it shows how much of an effect it has on me. Yeah, I'm so interested in hearing people's takes on this film because it is so divisive. It's one of those movies that just kind
Divisive in the sense of people think it's bad, or divisive in the sense
in the sense that it ends and everyone's like, "What the fuck was that?" Like, it just sort of stops.
I sat,
yeah,
because I was bitterly disappointed with where it ended, because it felt like this was climaxing to the point where you're like, you with the hot girl, you gonna play, it's gonna happen, man, and then fuck.
Sorry, I gotta go.
Boom. And I was like, whoa, like, the credits directed by who? I don't give a fuck who's directed by. Keep going with the story.
Where's part 2?
So, and that's almost like a disappointment for me, because I thought the film was so strong. I just didn't get that whole narrative decision.
I would highly recommend a second viewing because, like I said, I enjoyed it more on my second time, and I think with the perspective perspective of knowing that it's going to do that, I think it might fare a little better.
Maybe.
Like I said, this is my stealth number one. The only reason I didn't put it as number one because I was afraid of blowback.
Coward.
Yeah, it was my number 8, I think, before like 12 hours ago I switched it.
Wounds, nice one. It wasn't even an honourable mention for me, but it could have definitely have been. Definitely could have been.
If it was good.
Number 3, Marriage Story.
Go.
Wow.
I only watched this 2 nights ago. There was a couple of ones that I really wanted to watch before we did this, and I just didn't get a chance to.
Can I just cash in my hipster chips and mention that I watched Marriage Story and The Irishman in the cinema? Thank you. I'm done. Continue.
Fucking la-di-da.
Fuck yourself. We're plebs, all right? We're streaming plebs.
You're not plebs. You're men who have jobs. I'm a child.
There was a couple that I wasn't able to. I wanted to see Parasite, and I looked on iTunes, and it's not coming out until the 5th of February.
You
and I was like,
fucked up.
I've missed that boat. There's a couple of other ones like
Can we all say that we haven't seen Uncut Gems yet? Because I think that is one that might.
that's
might be-
31st.
Yeah. We're all waiting with bated
I actually
breath.
had a cam. I'm going to go ahead a cam stream dialed in, and I was like, I'm going to hold off on this. I found
I
on the internet a
really wanna see
stream.
that.
I knew I could see it was the cinema, and I was like, do I want to watch this? And I said no.
I can't do cams, man. Like, I mean, like, what's the advantage of seeing it shittily
Exactly.
a couple weeks
and
before
that's
seeing
where
it properly?
I was like, that's it. I have to wait till it gets released.
Good boy.
No, like, so this is there of all the movies that I could see and that I wanted to see, this was one of the ones that I was like, I've just got to like dial it in.
Yeah.
And it's on Netflix, so I could. I was blown away by this. Like I said before, I was worried that it was going to be a revolutionary road. I was worried that it was going to be like this kind of, let's be deep and meaningful by
Being dark.
by being dark and showing people fight and show lots of really big emotions. And I thought that was this movie was so wonderfully done because it avoided doing that. Like, yes, it did have that scene, but it
so
also
much more
had
nuanced.
everything else. Like, it had the full range of like, and most of it was in the middle, which is what most of life is. And I thought that was really excellent that they never strayed too far from that love that they had for each other. Like, it was never out. Like, everything they did, you could tell was because they loved each other, or because they felt betrayed, or because they like. It was just it was there. It was real. So, it's so easy to speak like a wanker when talking about this film. Like, oh, it's real emotion, and
You have such an aversion to good movies.
I have an aversion to people talking about good films. I have an aversion because I think it's just so easy to like jump
films
on it.
now are they, Connor? I
Yeah.
didn't say films.
But that's the thing, right? Like, I think it's so easy to just jump on the films and
But you know it when you see it.
yeah,
Like when something like this comes along, you're like, yeah, this is the real deal.
yeah.
This is a movie that doesn't have any special effects
And-
or any
and it's
fucking
not-
spaceships, and it's fucking amazing.
And it's not trying too hard. Like, that's what gets me. Like, when a film tries to be edgy, or when it tries to be, whatever it is, like that, I just kind of feel like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Like, I get what you're doing. I'm not going to fall for the trap.
But then someone manages to take a universal human experience and just somehow throw it onto celluloid, and you're just like, that's fucking brilliant.
It hits me. Like, it genuinely made, like, this film feels natural, and that's what I really love.
As a newly affianced person, was it scary?
No, look, I've watched.
Get ready, bro.
Don't leave me!
Yeah,
Where's my lawyer?
Calling Alan Alda.
I did mention that I watched this without my fiance.
Yeah, same. Actually, no, Ash told me, she's like, I don't want to watch that movie. And I was like, you
I
should
get
fucking
it.
watch
I
that
100%
movie.
get it.
I
You should
watched it
watch
without my.
that movie.
Oh.
Mostly because my fiance wasn't there at the time, but like, it just. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it more or less. There's a great. This is a bit of a segue, but there's a great comedian called Daniel Sloss. He's a Scottish comedian, He's got a two-parter on Netflix. And one of his most like kind of big claim to fame is that he does a skit. Not a skit, sorry, like he does a bit, sorry, on true love, happiness. And he really delves into like think about what real love is, and as a result of that, there have been hundreds of people that have broken up with their significant others as a result of this. They've listened to it and they've been like, this, like, it makes so much sense. They're like, you're not the person for me. Like, I'm not going to half-ass this. And he's like, he like notches like things on a belt. Like he's broken up like 8 marriages. He's had like, fiancés split, like
divorce lawyers are paying him off.
Yeah, basically. And he loves it. He just like notches it up. And I watched that with my fiance, and that was tough. We were just kind of like we were kind of giving each other shifty looks, like, I'm good. Are you good? Or
is that still a yes? Or?
Yeah. So cool, I'm not gonna ask again. You're locked in. Sorry.
Have you watched any of Chris D'Elia stuff?
Who?
Chris D'Elia? Any of his
Chris D'Elia?
Yeah.
D'Elia? Chris D'Elia?
Whatever.
Yeah.
He's pretty similar.
He
gets pretty savage.
Yeah. He would probably be kind of like
do you want to watch Rick and Morty now?
Yeah. Like, should we? Like, we watched that, and then we were like silent on the couch. We're like, we need to watch something that is far less serious
My life is a lie.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you feel afterwards. You're like, you've just been called out by this fucking Scottish comedian. You're like,
comedian
fuck you, man.
more
Like, what
than me.
the fuck do you know? You're alone. Fuck you. So.
Yeah, Marriage
I'm very
Story.
happy. I'm very happy.
Netflix had a sick year, man.
Yeah, they've done really well.
For all the fucking spray at the wall, make the content happen stuff, this year they've really delivered.
Yeah.
Number 3, Bong.
June.
Ho!
Parasite.
Yeah,
That was
worked out.
well choreographed. We're really like
I wouldn't have jumped on that.
2.5 years of podcasting pays off.
Outstanding.
We saw this one, and I ate like a cheesecake.
You ate a whole cheesecake,
Outside.
which I presume might be the reason you enjoyed this movie so much.
My number 3 is because I had a cheesecake in the line, and it was just so good.
Also, we saw it at the State Theatre at the Sydney Film Festival with
did.
the director present,
Yeah.
which was very cool.
You sitting right next to us.
Yep, he came and sat in between us, actually.
I would have hold that edit a bit longer, Bong. But otherwise, it's a good.
Hey,
good,
Bong,
good
this
one.
is a solid 7 out of 10, Bong. So explain your process. Why'd you love this movie so much?
I think this film, I think when I watch it again, it's going to be a totally different experience.
Yes.
Because there's so much to it. I'm sure I've forgotten a lot of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers to this film, and going in, I just remember going in not knowing really what this film was about, and it was like unfolding Russian dolls, one after the other in front of each other, and like this thing expanding, and it was like, whoa, what are we actually dealing with here?
When was the last time you sat down in a film and like 45 minutes in, you're like, what genre is this? Like, what? Like, in a really very good way. You're like, what is this film?
And it goes here, it goes there. It's, man, I really like this guy's stuff. And then after this, I went ahead and watched Mother from 2009, which is a must-see.
Okay.
That is just such a great film. And Bong Joon-ho,
I've got to do the rest of his stuff.
he is honestly the man. I just love this guy's work. I need to watch this again. I look forward to watching it again. If you haven't seen this, what was it, 5th of February? You said Parasite's coming out?
Yeah. On iTunes for Australia. I don't know about anywhere else.
In there.
It's playing in some cinemas right now. As
Really?
Well. Yeah.
Oh, it's doing the re-release run.
It's doing the Oscar rounds.
Nice.
Yeah, like this was obviously one of my number 11s. This could have been absolutely part of my top 10. A spectacular film. The way that this director in particular deftly just weaves between tones is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I recommend knowing nothing about this film
Yes.
and just watching it because it's really outstanding.
100%.
Yeah.
Don't watch any trailers. It's a really fantastic experience.
Don't listen to us talk about it. Just go and see it.
Number 3, Benny.
My number 3 is Mike Flanagan's Doctor Sleep, which we've already talked about quite extensively. Even I, at this moment, am shocked to see it so high on my list. I was just so impressed by this film. I don't necessarily have much more to say about it, just that it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be good. And it is, and it's great.
This is the film that I would be outraged at. You know, like Rogue One. It's the 2 dudes from the cantina. That fucking shat me. You know, here's Danny. He's going down the corridor. He sees the old lady in the bath from The Shining. That kind of shit would on paper really piss me off. And it's done to perfection.
So good. That's one of my favorite scenes that you just described there.
Yeah.
When he just closes the door and you're like,
I watched this. I watched this the first time with you, Georgie, and I really liked it. And I watched it a second time with a friend in an otherwise empty cinema, and I absolutely loved it. And any movie that you like that much more the second time, I think is something special. It's such a show. Like, I don't actually care that this movie bombed so hard because Mike Flanagan's going to be fine. Everyone knows he's a fucking mensch.
Yeah.
But more people should have gone to see this because if anyone out there gives any kind of shit about The Shining, book or movie, you need to see this one.
Do you think that if this had been a Netflix film, this would have cleaned up?
More people would have seen it, definitely.
Yeah.
Because there's no risk watching a Netflix movie.
I think this would have been in the zeitgeist more so if it had been on Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's funny that this is your number 3 because my number 2 is also horror. It's Pet Sematary.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. My number 2 is Doctor Sleep.
Was Pet Sematary this year?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I wanted to adjust my worst of the
I
year.
just wanted to see. I wanted to say that to just see Ben's.
I don't think that movie
face.
was terrible, but
It's just like it just doesn't deserve to
I
be
was more
there.
amazed that you watched a horror movie.
Let's put that in my bottom 5.
Yeah.
Right now.
I
I thought that was 2018. I think just trying to erase that movie from my mind.
Just
hole.
honourable
no.
mentions.
To your point, Ben, about horror films. I just don't like watching them alone.
But seriously, how good is Jason Clarke in Pet Sematary?
Fantastic.
Weird head.
For me, it's I used to hate horror films as a kid and kind of a teenager.
Same.
And then
Same.
it was literally watching horror films with my mate Tristan that kind of turned that around because we would sit there and we'd make fun of these horror films and like we'd watch them and we would kind of, I don't know, it was this thing that like I became more comfortable with them and then I started to actually appreciate them for what they were. I started enjoying getting scared by them. But I don't know what it was. It's still like doing it alone. I don't find as much enjoyment in them.
I find I can get really freaked out by myself.
Yeah. And my fiance is like, no. Like there's movies that are not scary that she'll look and be like, is it scary? I'm like, no. She goes, but is it scary? It's like, it's mildly, I don't know, unsettling. And she's like, well, you're on your own.
It's mildly terrifying.
Yeah.
It's rated PG. No.
Nope. So we're basically relegated to Pixar films. My number 2 is Doctor Sleep.
Nice.
And for me, it was, God, it's the writing, it's the characters, it's so emblematic of Mike Flanagan, but also just the actors in it I thought were really fantastic. And just, it's one of my favorite uses of gore because it's not used as this kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's grotesque and it's intense and there's scenes where I'm like, oh, this is terrible. But it always seems as though there's like purpose to it. There's a reason that I'm being freaked
not
out by
just
the
a
gore.
shock.
Yeah. It's not been like the gore is not for the sake of gore. The gore is for the sake of like
The story and the characters, yeah.
And that's always a big thing for me. Like,
God, he's good.
anyways, number 2, George, for you.
The Nightingale, Jennifer Kent's film.
Why did this become? Why is this so high for you?
I think it just really affected me, man. I think the story, I think the importance of it. I just wanted to kind of like literally halfway through the film, I took my headphones off and I was like, Ashley. I turned to my wife and I was like, la 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 la. We just got into this massive 40-minute discussion about all these things. When we were in South Africa, we went to the Apartheid Museum, and something I've never done before, and it was I literally one of the most emotionally affecting things that I've ever done. I cried for about an hour and a half. And I educated myself, and it was a really great museum. And I was like, why aren't there one of these in Australia? They modeled in South Africa. They modeled the whole apartheid thing off the White Australia policy. Why is this not as discussed? And it's this film, everyone talks about the rape scene, but it's as much about Aboriginal Australia. It's much about colonialism. It's as much about, what's the word? Convicts, Irish convicts, people from the UK, convicts. There's so much to this film. You can look at it from more of a historical point. You can look at it from more of just two human beings connecting. I just think it's, I'm really trying to fly the flag of this film because it affected me so much and nobody's talking about it and it's pissing me off.
It really is one of those, isn't it? You see it and it's
off.
You want to throw it at people.
Yeah, man.
Without throwing it at them.
Well, it's so hard to make people watch movies.
Yeah, exactly.
As I know from you two guys.
If you tell someone you have to see this film, they're like, okay, I'm never seeing that.
Yep.
And for me, the pitch here is tough because I loved the Babadook and I was hungry for what she's bringing out next. But the trailers, the historical context.
This is not the Babadook.
This is not the ingredients, the elevator pitch here isn't really strong for me. I didn't see it in the cinema. I wasn't there day one,
Even I, as I said before,
Sorry.
No, me.
Even I.
No, but me, I watch a lot more cinema movies than you because I work in a cinema. But even I, as I said, I waited weeks to see this. And generally, if I do not see a movie on the Thursday it releases, I will not see it in cinemas.
Yeah. Yeah. So on paper, this really shouldn't be in my top 10. But I watched this film. I came at it objectively and I fucking loved it from so many angles. In terms of entertainment, tough to call it entertaining, but emotionally affecting, important.
And beyond that, beyond just being an important film, it is immaculately well made.
Dude, the editing in it has got a really interesting kind of way she cuts. She almost it's got a kind of this almost stuttery feeling to it without it feeling awkward. And the 4:3 aspect ratio, the square look, just adds another layer to this. Amazing performances.
Yeah, I was saying to you the other day, it's because it's in 4:3, which is an aspect ratio I would never think to pick nor seek out.
Yeah.
But it's watching in a cinema, possibly the first time I've watched something in 4:3 in a cinema. It's so confronting. There is nowhere else to look. You will have to face everything that is happening in that little square, and you can't get away.
You said it perfectly, man.
Yeah.
And those scenes where you can't get away, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But it's an important film, and I encourage everyone to go look and check it out.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Your number 2.
My number 2 is still, I think, Dexter Fletcher's Rocket Man.
Really?
I think that made your number 1 last year. Or the mid-year.
I think it was number 2.
No, sorry, it was number 2.
3?
Because I know exactly what your number 1 is going to be.
Yeah, this is a movie I never, ever, ever would have anticipated liking as much as I did. I'm not a huge Elton John fan. I hated Bohemian Rhapsody without ever having seen the whole thing. And he directed, or he took over directorial duties on that film. And this movie comes along, and do you remember how Bohemian Rhapsody was a plus $1 billion success that everyone was raving about? People couldn't stop talking about it. This is the movie they were talking about when they were talking about that film. This is an amazing biopic / actual musical film that doesn't... It's not too fussed with the reality of Elton John's life, but more the essence of it, the character of it, the character of him, and telling that through his music. It's absolutely mind-blowing the way they use his songs performed unbelievably by Taron Egerton to just capture his character and his life without being slavish to the true events. Biopics so often fall flat because it's impossible to throw an actual person's life into a 3-act structure because life is complicated and weird and people are inconsistent. But what they managed to do in this film is, I think, mind-blowing. And I cannot believe he is not nominated for Best Actor.
This is not a film that I saw, and not one that I am really keen to go investigate.
I agree. I have no idea why I even watched it. I can't remember why I watched it because I'm not that big of an Elton John fan. Philadelphia Freedom is the fucking goat. but otherwise, like I would never normally seek this out. I think I must have had a day off or something.
I saw Elton John like a couple of weeks ago live, and he's 72 years old, and he's incredible. He's incredible. I don't love his songs, and it got really long-winded. Like, it's for the fans. It's for the fans. But him and his band are like true professional musicians, and he's a superstar.
There is something pretty wild about watching kind of the older generation, or like the kind of classic hits. I remember watching Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey when they came to Sydney. This is probably about like 5 years ago. Like, they are old. So that's The Who. And and they, like, Roger Daltrey was, he was
that affected me.
Shut it, like them being able to like belt that shit out was wild, like fucking wild.
It's like, it's, you know what, like, as much I will totally say, like, seeing Elton John was kind of agonizing in a way, but the other part of me was like, this is a man who has dedicated his life to a performance and an instrument and a craft, and I can see he has mastered it. Through and through. I believe you have mastered what you, like, he had a vision, he wanted to write songs, he wanted to be a performer, and he's executed that and ticked that box through and through over how long? Like, when he's 25 or 20
years, yeah.
He's like 50 years. Like, hats off to you, man. Like, I cannot, like, give you, it's incredible. And so on that merit, I'm keen to check this movie out.
And that's something that impressed me so much about it, because unlike Freddie Mercury, he's alive and had an active hand in developing this film.
Oh, right.
So the fear, of course, is that it will be very lionizing towards him.
Egotistical project.
Absolutely, yeah. Which I think Bohemian Rhapsody was to, ultimately a dead man. Whereas this film was so candid about his flaws, his drug abuse, his struggles with his sexuality, his music career.
There was a brilliant quote that came about, which was apparently one of the producers or the studio or whoever asked if they could make it a little bit more PG, and Elton John actually stepped in and said, "My life wasn't PG."
He's like, "I'm fucking Richard Madden in this movie."
Yeah, and I think that's like. For him to be able to go out there and show warts and all is really spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is kind of told through the framing device of him at Narcotics Anonymous, in the most amazing Elton John outfit you could imagine, and I don't know, it's just pitch perfect.
Yeah, if you look at his, I Wikipedia'd him and went through all of his albums and kind of looked at the highs and lows of his career. But if you look at the philanthropic endeavors this man has done. Like, truly, and the stuff he was saying at the concert, it can be fluff, it can be this, it can be that, but that man is a truly, like, I feel like he's a really amazing human being on a number of levels, and he shows a lot of empathy for mankind and his fellow man. So, like, I'm really keen to check this out.
Yeah, just to really re-emphasize something I loved about this film is that it's not a biopic, it's a musical.
Okay.
Like, it's complete magical realism. Like there's a scene the first time he plays, I think it's Crocodile Rock for a little venue in LA, that he starts like floating up into the air while he's playing it. Like it's not just recounting real events, like this happened, then this happened, then this happened. It takes real flights of fancy with it, which I thought was so cool.
Nice. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to quickly say something. I saw this really cool quote when I was overseas, and it was all about, you don't remember. It was actually on a bench, and it was like, you don't remember what somebody did for you. You don't remember what you did for them. You don't remember all the little. You remember the feeling somebody gave you, and like a musical when executed well, I can give you. It's not like, oh, then this happened, and then he did this, and then he did that. It's like this is just a feeling of a man's life, and it sounds like it's in that sort of ballpark.
Yeah, like I said early on, it captures the character so well. Not even necessarily the real person. I don't know Elton John, but it crafts the character so amazingly well. I think it's outstanding.
That's cool. Number one.
My number 1 and 2 were pretty interchangeable. I switched out Doctor Sleep from number 1 a couple of times. It ultimately came down to my number 1 being Avengers Endgame. I can only say this so many times. A lot of that is the context of the film. What it be like? It's standing on the shoulders of giants, essentially. And I kind of take that all into to my
standing on its own shoulders somehow.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, wanking while it does it.
Sucking its own dick.
Which is a very, very valid criticism of the movie.
The gerbil up its ass.
I don't think you know what we're doing.
I'm trying to fit in, all right?
George is just
I'm just like Richard Gere. He was kind of weird. He was a kind of weird dude.
We were doing something very specific, and you're just like, "What's a weird sexual thing I can like throw out there?"
How can I be included?
What did you think that we were?
Carry on, Connor, carry on.
Did that derail the podcast?
Yes. The sexual deviant Avengers Endgame.
I mean, a rat did play a very big part in it.
I suppose.
Definitely wasn't a gerbil. It was
a rat.
It was a rat.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I enjoyed this film. I thought I was so impressed by this film. I think that the biggest criticism that you can make of this film, apart from the one that we just made, is that it's not as good as Infinity War, which is like kind of, it's such a high bar to stand against, and such a different film as well. And I really appreciated how this kind of capped off the story, and yeah, I think that there's almost an obligation to put this as number 1.
Yeah, for me, like this is number 7 for me, and as incredible of a film it is, and you're right, like it's kind of like, how can you compare Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? It's part 2 and part 3. They serve different purposes.
But it wouldn't be out
narrative.
of character to say that Return is the best of that year. It's just not as good as Empire, maybe.
Potentially.
I don't know what else came out that year.
I'm gonna look it up after this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna throw 20 movies at you.
Name one other film from 1983. I dare you. But I don't know. Fuck, there was 6 other better movies, so fuck it. That's how it works.
Yeah.
That's my insightful comment.
Yeah, it's not your only insightful comment. I'm happy to move on. Like, we've talked about Endgame. Like,
I'm curious to see what your number 1 is, because
I know exactly what it is. Yeah. What do you mean you're curious? You know what it is.
He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember last time. It's fine.
I mean, you don't even have to remember the last time.
I don't remember yesterday, so
it's Ben. What do you think it is?
Rocket Man 2.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, there's a certain irony to what's happening right now that is
when it happens, I'm gonna
delicious.
When it
go on. What's your number 1?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That is so cool. You're such a fucking sick film nerd, mate. No,
that seems so petty. Like, you are so
no, I'm really
cool.
happy to hear that. I fucking love it when other people enjoy movies that much. Like, obviously, again, this was my number 11. But
I'm still really upset that you did that.
It could have slotted into any other point in this. Carry on, please talk.
This is your pick, by the way.
Yeah.
Movie. Like, I saw this movie twice in the cinema. Had to go back for round 2 because I loved it so much the first time. I guess really why I loved this film so much was how much it loved film. You know, this is Quentin
Quarantino. Quarantino.
The alcohol's kicking in
Tintin
now.
quarantine. Go on.
Tintin quarantine. Fuck you. Fuck you to Hades.
What's the language?
Just get through your last pick. We're so close.
Listen, he's a stand-up bloke, and he handed in a solid feature, and that's it. No, listen, from I don't think I've okay, put it this way. DiCaprio is so solid for me. He's so solid. Brad Pitt is so solid. But those guys really handed in an incredible performance at the hand of an awesome script that set it up for them to just work. You know, what's the name of the show that DiCaprio's character stars in this? It's that old Western.
Yes.
It's that old Western show, and it seemed so authentic. It seemed so real. I loved the sort of parallels of Brad Pitt being the stuntman.
Bounty Law. Sorry.
Bounty Law.
I was searching the data banks. It's a bit slower after I've been drinking.
I loved the relationship between these two characters. Brad Pitt as the stuntman on screen and off screen. It was just so good. And DiCaprio's character, you know, seeing the highs and lows of Hollywood, the final sequencing, the changing of the timeline with Sharon Tate. Sorry, spoilers. If you haven't seen this film.
If you haven't seen this movie, fucking why?
But
yeah, I'm saying it.
The message at the end and the loss of innocence.
The end of an era.
It works so well for me on every level. And, you know, I know you said before the scene for me, you know, that final scene is crazy, but the scene at the ranch where the tension's rising and he goes into the back and is the guy there? Is the guy not there? And this film just worked so well for me. I loved it.
I completely agree. That the scene that I was talking about, I think, is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. The scene you're talking about is also...
It's okay.
No, absolutely masterful. Like, unbelievable the first time you watch it, thinking you know where it's going, but not really. And then the second time you watch it, knowing where it's going, it's still amazing. And
Totally.
DiCaprio and Pitt, who are, as you said, both two of the most solid performers we've ever had, delivering what I think are career best performances from both of them, is insane. It's absolutely insane. A lot of people had a weird reaction to this movie where I was like, oh, it was just people driving around LA. It was really boring. I'm like, I don't understand how anyone could watch this and feel that. It blows my mind.
I can understand
some of the criticism.
Some of the criticism, especially around Margot Robbie's character and pushing her so hard, and ultimately what happens with that character. You know, she does play second tier. Is that a fault of the film? No, that's just, I guess that's just the way they went about it. But it all worked extremely well for me, and I can't wait to watch this again. I'm going to watch this many, many times. It's kind of lame that a Quentin Tarantino film is just the generic filmmaker making, his film's the best of
Seems
the year.
obvious,
But
yeah.
truly, it really is the best of the year. And I didn't enjoy Django as much. I haven't seen Once Upon a Time,
Hateful Eight.
The Hateful Eight. Yeah, Once Upon a Time, The Hateful Eight. Since Inglourious Basterds, I've been a bit middling. But this delivered in spades for me, so had a great time.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yep.
My number one is unsurprisingly the same as it was halfway through the year.
Can I spoil it for George?
Please. Look behind you.
It's fucking fantastic watching you trying to figure it out.
Shazam!
Literally sitting
Rise
above
of
your head.
Skywalker.
And the Rise of Skywalker. So, as I said, all of my list is very interchangeable. I feel weird having to try and justify this, but
You should feel weird.
and Wounds is kind of my actual number one. But Shazam was the absolute most joyous experience I had twice in a cinema this year. Captain Marvel, who Shazam was formerly known as, is my favorite comic book character. I'm a huge DC guy. The ways in which this movie shouldn't have worked, couldn't have worked, especially coming from the studio that made fucking Justice League, BVS, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman I didn't even like very much.
Aquaman.
Aquaman is kind of cool. are innumerable. And yet somehow every fucking step that David F. Sandberg, God bless you, took in this movie blew me away. I love the trailers. I was so susceptible to what they were already doing, and everything about it I loved more than I should have.
Yeah. Look, I gotta agree. Like, it made it into my top 10. Like, it's
Yeah.
a wonderful film.
I just had so much fun. And as superhero movies go, I find it so rare for them to have a finale that makes me like the movie more than the rest of the movie already did. Like, so rare. Like, most of these fucking superhero movies, all of which I kind of love to some degree. Like, I really enjoy these things. A lot of them kind of peter out. Whereas this one had a finale that actually, like, shocked me in the most positive way possible.
I totally agree.
Yeah, like, I did not expect to see what I saw at the end of that movie, and I was so happy.
But without the emotional connection and the performances of the kids, I hope I'm not spoiling anything here, but those reveals don't work.
Totally.
At the end.
But you're hitting on what really fucking landed for this movie for me, which was the emotional connection. So many, like, I'm a diehard MCU fan. I fucking love the MCU. So few of these superhero movies are about anything, I feel. Fucking strike me down if I'm wrong, Zeus. But they have themes to them and a lot of spectacle. But Shazam actually had this through line about Billy looking for his mother. And in the movie, he actually finds her. And how that unfolds, I thought was, like, shocking. Again, in the best way possible. And no pun intended. But just really surprising to see a superhero movie delve into those kind of emotional depths. And still deliver on every other front as a superhero movie. And be funnier than probably any other superhero movie I've seen. Like I said, the whole top 10 is fairly interchangeable, but my God, I had a good time with this movie.
It's so good to hear that because you are such a diehard fan of that character.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody who even knows that character other than you.
Yeah.
So that's
So
just
nerd
like,
props.
Yeah.
that's fucking awesome.
Every Captain Marvel fan has the thing. They all Shazam, Captain Marvel. You have to go through the whole spiel every time you talk. Especially now that Marvel made a Captain Marvel movie that fucking did $1 billion. I can't believe 2 Captain Marvel movies came out in the same year. One of them did a lot better than the other, obviously.
All right. So should we do quickly some honorable mentions? I don't want to get too bogged down in
Oh my
it.
God.
I'm going to run through. All right, 2 things I need to say. First of all, here are the outstanding films that I didn't see that I should have, and I reckon would have at least a couple of them, if not most of them, would have had a good shot at getting in my top 10. Parasite, 1917, Uncut Gems, Ford v Ferrari, Jojo Rabbit, The Lighthouse, Midsummer, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I made some major omissions.
didn't
I
see
I've
admit-
not
Once Upon a
seen
Time
a
in
lot of
Hollywood.
very
Yeah.
good movies.
Whoa.
I missed out a lot of good movies this year, and
Fuck.
it was bad on my part, admittedly.
That shit happens.
On mentions?
Honorable mentions. A lot of the same ones that I had in the mid-year top 5. So one of them is Godzilla. That movie stayed with me.
Top 5. Sorry. Top 1. Is that what we're on right now? Honorable mention.
Number 1.
That
Godzilla's an honorable mention?
honestly,
Me too.
For
that
real.
movie stuck with me.
Gorgeous.
The
Fucking
soundtrack,
beautiful.
The visuals, the hype. Like
I would say the most gorgeous blockbuster of the year.
at least like top 3 in terms of visuals.
Rise of Skywalker, baby.
I said top 3. Like that movie really blew me away.
That almost, I really tried to get that in my worst of the year. I tried.
I know you
so
hated
hard.
it, but you watched it twice, which
The
was your
second
mistake.
time was horrible.
The other one that I wanted to mention, which probably like it definitely wouldn't have made my top 10, but is definitely worth of honorable mentions, is Alita Battle Angel 4. And again, this is the same reason that it was in my honorable mentions for the top 5 of the mid-year. For the things it did right. Because the things it did wrong were fucking disgraceful. Like there's a lot about that movie I didn't like. But for the things that it did right, I thought Alita Battle Angel was really cool. I really appreciated that movie.
It was decent.
Netflix also had some really good releases, which was Two Popes and The Irishman. I think need to be in my honorable mentions.
I need to see Two Popes still.
Finally, some TV shows. Also, Netflix was Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. I had a really fun time with that. As someone that hadn't watched the original Dark Crystal and had kind of come to it a bit late, this really surprised me. I was really enjoyed it, and I loved the different medium. Like I loved it being puppets. And finally, Watchmen as a series. I know we weren't going to do any TV shows, so that's why it's in honorable mentions. It would have definitely been on my top 10 media experiences this year easily. But yeah, I think that definitely deserves a shout out.
For me, I mentioned a few honorable mentions along the way, but Ad Astra is definitely one I really, really wanted to get into the top 10 here. I just couldn't quite get it in.
Because it sucked.
Yeah, why? That's
How does it suck?
it doesn't suck. Look,
It's
It's
so
fine,
awesome.
it's
Ben
fine.
is way more critical of it, but I don't think
There's
so.
a couple
we're on the same
elements-
level. We're on the
There's
same
a couple
level, I think.
elements that I feel like people don't like to
Get. They don't get it, man.
They don't.
Don't you
bring
get it?
up.
It's a father-son relationship, and the dynamics that are like.
Hold on. Number one, the world building is really sick.
Agreed.
very good.
We said that in the review.
good.
He is in like just above Earth territory, and then he goes to Mars, and then he goes from
Don't
Mars to
recap
here.
where he goes.
Like it is just the infrastructure.
Really good world building.
No.
So he went from
No, but
Houston
the infrastructure
to
and
Dallas.
the journey and the different ways he gets from planet to planet and whatnot. It's really interesting and feels like, wow, this feels like an
feels
established
lived in,
world.
right? Yeah, like the commercial flights to the moon are very interesting. I'll give you that.
I loved the father-son story. I thought this really, if it had just kind of had a bit more punch.
What do you
on
think
the
about
ending,
monkeys in space?
If it just a bit more punch
A bit more monkeys.
at the end, I would have thought this could get into my top 10, but it didn't quite get there. Still really loved this.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. I really think James Gray is a very interesting director. Have you seen The Lost City of Z?
No.
I reckon if you like this movie, you should definitely check that out.
Cool. And really, TV of the year, like I would have put TV high in this
Chernobyl.
list. Chernobyl, amazing series from HBO. Watchmen as well. I just got I had such a great time with Watchmen, especially episode 6 and Mandalorian. I can't
Mandalorian
tell
would
you.
make it into your top 10?
100%. Mandalorian is the shit. It
Star
is
Wars guy.
my favorite. Could even be my favorite thing of 20. More than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
damn.
Mandalorian is my number one of any medium in 2019.
It's fair.
I can't tell you, and maybe
No,
it's,
you can't.
I just I had the best time with Mandalorian. It's the shit. Let's leave it at that.
All right, my honorable mentions. Fucking strap in.
God.
The Wind, Hotel Mumbai, Hustlers, awesome. The Perfection,
Hotel Mumbai.
Hotel Mumbai.
Wait.
That was in my top 5.
We've been through this.
Yeah. At the half year. The Perfection on Netflix. Check it out. Really fucking twisty,
cello one?
disgusting thriller. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Godzilla King of the Monsters.
Fuck you.
The most beautiful blockbuster we had this year. Scary stories to tell in the dark.
I've been waiting for that to be released.
Ultimately disappointing. Amazing set pieces. Unbelievable creature design. Really cool movie.
Keen for that.
Good Boys. Incredibly funny. Unbelievably sweet. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Mixed feelings. John Wick Chapter 3. Amazing. Under the Silver Lake. From the director of It Follows.
Okay.
This movie has been delayed a couple of years. It's not a horror movie. It's like kind of an LA detective story starring Andrew Garfield. Very fucking weird. Not sure what it's about yet, but quite engrossing in its own way.
Cool.
Us, awesome. The Lego Movie, the second part, I think is at least as good as the first one. The Irishman, The Art of Self-Defense, The Lodge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Very cool
Lodge.
horror movie.
Is that a Netflix one?
No, I saw this at the Sydney Underground after you left.
That's right. That's where. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Could be divisive, but very fucking cool. Lords of Chaos, which no one has talked about today.
We talked
Was
about
that this year?
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit.
It was at
in
our
our
half
mid-year.
year, yeah. I think in some areas it released 2018, so it doesn't necessarily qualify.
Dude, if that, I fucked up.
Amazing fucking film.
I fucked up if that was 2019.
It was. You had it in your top 5 for the mid-year.
Half year, yeah.
Are you for real?
So did I.
Are you for real? That seems like longer.
I know.
Anyways,
Dude, I amend my list.
where do you chuck it in?
Number 1, baby.
Rise of Skywalker has to stay number 10. It's a Joker, you're gone.
Lords of Chaos, yes. Highly recommend.
that. Especially if you're a metal fan, get the fuck in there.
Metalhead. What?
And 2 kind of tenuous recommendations. The Gentleman, which sort of qualifies in some territories, I think is absolutely amazing. It might have been in my top 10 if it was more specific. And Underwater, which is a 2020 release, but a 2017 film. So I'm mostly saying Gentleman and Underwater because they're still in cinemas. Please go watch them if you can, because they're both really good.
Underwater could make... I'm considering that a
Those
2020 film.
Those are both 2020 films.
That could make my top 5 of mid-year.
No. And just quickly, TV, The Witcher, I loved more than I possibly ever could have expected.
I forgot to mention that.
I was very skeptical going into that series, and then it turned into the most fucking silly, fun, amazing, serious, awesome thing I could have imagined. Watchmen was amazing. Barry is
season 2.
possibly the best show on TV. Check that out. Chernobyl, amazing. Rick and Morty, I love the new season. Schitt's Creek, please watch that if you like to laugh. And just get through the first season. It's not as good as the other ones. It just gets better and better and better. And Letterkenny, which is the new love of my life.
I was about to say, if you mentioned Schitt's Creek, then...
I watched over 6 seasons of it this year within a couple of weeks. It's poetry. Letterkenny, nobody's heard of, and it's amazing.
It's on SBS. They have all 7 seasons. Or no, sorry. They have... they've got 1 to 7, I think. 8 has just been released on Crave in the North America. I haven't seen 8 yet. I'm very excited.
Right.
7 leaves on a pretty... I mean, they all leave on cliffhangers.
They have a huge... It's so weird.
It's so funny.
like an
and
inconsequential...
It's never what you think. Like, if you'll start to get into the habit of like
Then
understanding
they resolve
what they're
it within 2 seconds in the next season every time.
doing. Yeah. It's never what you think it is. It's fantastic. I love it.
Anyway,
Pitter patter.
let's get at her.
To Texasize.
10-4, Big Daddy.
Fuck Letterkenny.
Watch an episode, damn you.
That's right. That's how we do it. So, guys, were we right? Were we wrong? What was your top 10 of the year?
Let us know if there's
wanna
anything we
hear
missed.
from you.
Pretty sure this episode is just going to be like highlighted by the fact that I'm a sweaty, like
I'm feeling good right
red
now.
Oh,
mess.
they're all used to that.
What? I wonder why that is. Because the aircon is blowing directly on you.
At you, and only you.
No one else. And I'm getting the blowback from your shitty hot air.
That's how it works, baby. There's a hierarchy in this podcast based on capabilities and height.
That you said
See you next time. We're going to do this in 2020. As I
is
said,
2020.
let us know your thoughts on our lists. And did we miss anything major? We always like hearing your recommendations, guys. So hit us up. Don't forget to watch our worst of the year. Things are going to get pretty savage. And hit that subscribe button. Fuck. I don't know where this is going.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. See ya forever.